Chapter 1145. The Nine Heavens Immortal Academy was not located in any of the 9 great immortal realms. Instead, it was located somewhere in the void. At a glance, the immortal island, which was as big as a continent, was quietly floating in the vast starry sky. It was enshrouded in light and immortal mist. A river of stars surrounded the immortal island like a jade belt. Many stars decorated the sky above the immortal island like decorations. The huge mountain gate was supported by meteorites and stood in the middle of the river of stars. The words 9 Heavens Immortal Academy were written in a majestic manner. Is this the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy? In the distant void, a great rock flapped its wings, and the shockwaves it emitted shattered the meteorites around it. Jun Xiaoyaro and Jiang Luoli stood on top of it. Jun Xiaoyaro sighed as he looked at the majestic 9 Heavens Immortal Academy in the distance. Although he had seen a lot of things, the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy was still one of the top academies in the immortal realms. The Monster King Institute and the Archean Royalty Ancient Emperor Institute of the Monster Race were both top academies, but they were still inferior to the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy. Therefore, many of the Monster Race and the seeds of the Archean Royalty did not want to go to their own academies. Instead, they came to the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy to cultivate. Of course, the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy did not reject them. All living beings in the immortal realms could enter the Immortal Academy to cultivate as long as they met the selection criteria. At this moment, a few guards in silver armor appeared in front of them. They were the guards of the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy, and their cultivation levels were all Saint Kings. With Saint Kings as guards, the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy was indeed powerful. Who are you? Tell me your name. Fufeng of Gojosian's aura fluctuation alerted the guards. However, they did not think that anyone would dare to act recklessly in front of the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy. Jun Xiaoyaro of the Jun family. Jun Xiaoyaro stood with his hands behind his back and said calmly, "What? It's Lord Son of God." The guards looked over and were shocked. They hurriedly bowed 90 degrees. They did not expect Jun Xiaoyaro to come to the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy unknowingly. If they were notified in advance, the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy would definitely treat Jun Xiaoyaro with the most luxurious treatment. "Lord Son of God, please come in." The guards' expressions were respectful. At the same time, they sent messages to Immortal Academy's attendants, having them inform the various elders. If it were any other prodigies, even if they were from an immortal force, these guards would not have changed their expressions. However, Jun Xiaoyaro was one of the most prestigious young cultivators in the 9 Heavens Immortal realm. Even the elders of the Immortal Academy had to treat Jun Xiaoyaro as if he was their ancestor, let alone them. Jun Xiaoyaro joined the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy. It wasn't Jun Xiaoyao's honor, it was the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy's honor. When Jiang Luoli saw this, she also sighed with amazement. Worthy of being Big Bro Xiaoyao. When we came to Immortal Academy, they didn't have this kind of attitude. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled faintly. He didn't really care about these superficial things. Glory, heroes, none of them were important to him. At most, they would only help him collect the power of faith. A moment later, rays of light flew out from the island. They were the respected elders of Immortal Academy. The one leading them was none other than Immortal Academy's Grand Elder. Haha, Xiaoyaro has really made me impatient. Immortal Academy's Grand Elder burst out laughing. He then glanced at the azure sky rock under Jun Xiaoyao's feet. His cultivation was in the Dao Highness realm. Even Jun Xiaoyao's mount's cultivation was higher than his. It made Immortal Academy's Grand Elder feel a little awkward. In Immortal Academy, not many people were qualified to be Jun Xiaoyao's master. What? The Jun clan's Son of God has come to Immortal Academy. It's really Lord Son of God. So that's the Jun clan's Son of God. It's my first time seeing him in person. The appearance of the elders of Immortal Academy naturally alarmed many geniuses of Immortal Academy. After hearing that Jun Xiaoyaro had come to Immortal Academy, countless geniuses immediately appeared to see Jun Xiaoyao's true appearance. Densely packed silhouettes appeared, looking at Jun Xiaoyaro with admiration, respect, and adoration. Of course, there were also some who didn't look too good. For example, some of the Archean royalty, some of the Xian Ting's geniuses, and others. Young Master is here. Yu Chanhuan, Tai Yin Jade Hair, Princess Longji, and others appeared. Jun Xiaoyao's followers also appeared. Some geniuses of the Jun clan's main and hidden branches also appeared. It could be said that Jun Xiaoyao's arrival was enough to stir up the entire Nine Heavens Immortal Academy. Of course, there were also some who didn't appear. The current tyrant body, ancient void dragon's Long Yarrow didn't appear. Many people thought that she was guilty and didn't dare to appear in front of Jun Xiaoyao. Jiyu Tiezi didn't appear either. What surprised some people was that Empress Ling Yang didn't appear either. However, when everyone thought of Ling Yang's identity as the Xian Ting's young empress, she really shouldn't appear. Right at this moment, a pitilessly beautiful woman with azure blue hair and exquisite facial features appeared. She wore a plain gauze dress and had long, azure blue hair. It was Luo Xiangling. Xiaoyao. Luo Xiangling rushed to Jun Xiaoyao. Seeing so many people around, she resisted the urge to hug Jun Xiaoyao. Jiang Luoli didn't feel any sense of danger when she saw this. Because she was already calm. It's that beautiful elder. Is she also related to the son of God of the Jun family? Luo Xiangling's mysterious origins, powerful strength, and peerless appearance undoubtedly made her a goddess as soon as she came to the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy. Immortal Academy's great elder was also very tactful. He knew that Luo Xiangling had the cultivation of a quasi-emperor and had a close relationship with Jun Xiaoyao. Therefore, he directly gave her the title of honorary elder. This allowed Luo Xiangling to adapt a little. It wasn't much different from when she was the Luo King of Ars Academy. Xiangling, it seems that you have also temporarily adapted to life in Immortal Academy. Jun Xiaoyao smiled slightly. Haha, I have to thank you, little friend, for sending another expert to Immortal Academy, Immortal Academy's great elder said with a smile. Then, Immortal Academy held a grand welcoming party for Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao didn't like crowds, so he only entertained briefly. Immortal Academy's great elder also arranged for Jun Xiaoyao's residence. Immortal Academy had 36 heavenly caves and 72 blessed lands. This was a precious land that only a group of elders and seed-level figures had the qualifications to live in. Jun Xiaoyao, Jiang Luoli, and the others were all given a heavenly cave. Immortal Academy calmed down again in the following period of time. Jun Xiaoyao's arrival set off a wave. However, inside Immortal Academy, normally, the disciples were strictly forbidden from fighting, so it was still a peaceful cultivation place in general. Jun Xiaoyao didn't immediately find Ling Yang. Instead, he prepared to use the world power of the world tree to repair the broken primordial spirit world in Jiang Luoli's body. Jiang Luoli was naturally very happy, and her heart was filled with sweetness. Jun Xiaoyao was a little curious about what secrets Jiang Luoli's primordial spirit world hid. After all, he already felt that the rules of the primordial spirit world didn't seem to be the same as the rules of the immortal realm. In other words, the master of the primordial spirit world might not be from the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm. Meanwhile, in another heavenly cave with abundant immortal chi, a beautiful young girl with 2 buns stood at the entrance of the cave and spoke into the cave. Empress, since young Master Jun came to Immortal Academy, it seems like he has been staying in the cave with Jiang Luoli. Understood. You can leave now. A cold voice came from the cave. Yes. The beautiful young woman, who was Ling Yang's maid, Sakura, nodded and left. She was sighing in her heart. Empress, even I can see that you are distracted. Why don't you be more frank? Chapter 1146. After Jun Xiaoyao settled down in Immortal Academy, he also welcomed a period of peace. As for when he would go to the Void Sky World, the Great Elder would naturally inform him when the time came. During this period, Jun Xiaoyao first used the world power of the world tree to help Jiang Luoli repair the elemental spirit world. During this period of time when the elemental spirit world was being repaired, Jun Xiaoyao's understanding of the world Tao also became more and more profound. The master who created the elemental spirit world should be an extremely powerful existence. What were the original levels of the elemental spirit world? Middle world, greater world, or even a single universe? Jun Xiaoyaro was trying to figure it out. The levels of the Innerverse were divided into the Dust World, Lesser World, Middle World, Greater World, Single Universe, Multiverse, and so on. Jun Xiaoyao's current Innerverse was the Dust World. Although it was the most basic, there were not many people in the Supreme Realm who could create an Innerverse. Many powerhouses only began to plan the creation of an Innerverse after reaching the Boundary Emperor Realm. It was only at the Great Emperor Realm that it was time to cultivate an Innerverse. And those Innerverses generally borrowed the laws of heaven and earth of the immortal domain. Jun Xiaoyao's Innerverse completely belonged to him. This was the result of his Tao, the transformation of his divine origin. Because of the World Tree, Jun Xiaoyao's Innerverse was incomparably solid and stable. It was not far from the Lesser World. A month passed, and Jiang Luoli's elemental spirit world was more than 10 times larger than before. Although it still did not reach the perfect level, it had been repaired a lot compared to before. Jiang Luoli's aura was also rising, and her understanding of her own elemental spirit immortal body was also rising. Brother Xiaoyao, I saw some images. Jiang Luoli suddenly said in a daze with a blank face. What images? Jun Xiaoyao asked. Heaven and earth shattered, and all things fell into oblivion. Is this what the original master saw? Jiang Luoli looked confused. Jun Xiaoyao fell into deep thought. It seemed that Jiang Luoli's fortuitous encounter had other secrets behind it. Big brother Xiaoyao, I want to go into seclusion for a period of time, Jiang Luoli suddenly said. She was blessed with good fortune, and her heart was stirred. This was a good opportunity for her to cultivate. All right, take this branch of the world tree. It'll be helpful for your cultivation. Jun Xiaoyao took out another section of the tree of the world and gave it to Jiang Luoli. Jiang Luoli did not stand on ceremony. She also had the belief to become stronger. He couldn't let Jiang Shengyi bear the pressure of Jun Xiaoyao alone. She also had to take action. Her legs were short, but she was ambitious. Jiang Luoli returned to her heavenly abode and went into seclusion. All right, I'm going to start cultivating too. Jun Xiaoyao was still in no hurry to find Ling Yang. He still had forbidden techniques that he had yet to cultivate. For example, the forbidden technique of the 6 Annihilation Kings, the 6 burials of the heavens. This was a forbidden technique that was said to be able to bury the entire immortal realm. Although it sounded a little exaggerated. But if 6 kilometer-level immortals performed the 6 burials of the heavens together, they might really be able to bury half of the immortal realm. Of course, Jun Xiaoyao was only one person now. It was a little difficult for him to use a technique that could only be used by 6 people. However, he had unlimited qi and dharmic powers. He also had a quasi-carnate sacred body, chaotic physique, supreme divine blood, and other special physiques. In the future, when his cultivation level increased, it would be easy for him to perform the 6 burials of the heavens on his own. In addition, there was also the 1 spirit into 3 pure ones. Jun Xiaoyao also wanted to start cultivating. If he could succeed in the end, Jun Xiaoyao would have 3 lives. Ordinary prodigies could only comprehend a little of these techniques even if they studied them for a few years. Jun Xiaoyao, on the other hand, had to understand them thoroughly in a short time. He didn't have time to study them before, but now he could calm down and cultivate. In addition, after obtaining the quasi-carnate sacred body, Tao Fetus, Jun Xiaoyao also planned to comprehend the remaining 2 sacred body avatars. After all, he had already returned to the immortal realm and didn't need to hide his sacred body abilities anymore. When the time came, the 6 sacred body avatars would all appear and form the 6 paths of reincarnation, which would also become one of Jun Xiaoyao's trump cards. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed. Jun Xiaoyao had already studied the 1 qi into 3 pure ones and the 6 burials of the heavens in depth. Of course, these 2 trump cards were also very difficult to cultivate. They were far more complicated than the divine abilities that Jun Xiaoyao had cultivated before. Jun Xiaoyao's comprehension was monstrous. Although he could quickly comprehend and understand them, he still needed time to hone himself if he wanted to fully use them and use them freely. However, Jun Xiaoyaro still had to go to the ultimate place of creation of Immortal Academy, the Void Sky World. Therefore, he couldn't waste all his time here. It's about time. It's time to find Ling Yang. Jun Xiaoyaro naturally didn't find Ling Yang to reminisce about the past. Instead, he wanted to obtain Xian Ting's immortal tribulation sword art. Even though he wasn't like the reincarnated sword demon Yi Guchen, who was completely obsessed with the sword Dao. However, he already grasped 4 of the 5 great sword Dao divine arts. The weapon he was used to using was also the everlasting sword core. It could be said that Jun Xiaoyaro wasn't a prodigy in the sword Dao. However, a casual sword art from him was enough to make countless prodigies who specialized in sword Dao feel ashamed and submit to him. That was why condensing sword laws was extremely necessary for Jun Xiaoyaro. Jun Xiaoyaro left the heavenly passage he was in. As soon as he appeared, he immediately sensed countless gazes secretly observing him from all directions. It couldn't be helped. Right now, Jun Xiaoyaro was the most popular existence in Immortal Domain. If he didn't deliberately hide himself, he would be the center of attention no matter where he went. Among those gazes, there were gazes of admiration, as well as curiosity. Of course, there were also some enemy factions who wanted to monitor Jun Xiaoyao's every move. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't mind. It was better to spread the word. The son of God of the Jun family was related to the young emperor of Xian Ting. When the time came, it might even cause conflict between Emperor Wa's immortal lineage and the other immortal lineages. Soon, Jun Xiaoyaro arrived at the heavenly passage where Ling Yang was. A beautiful girl with 2 buns on her head looked at Jun Xiaoyaro with a look of shock and awe. Young Master Jun Sakura's voice was trembling. "Oh, I remember you. I think you showed up on the desolate star of the ultimate ancient road. You were Ling Yang's servant girl," Jun Xiaoyaro said to Sakura. "Young Master Jun, you still remember someone as insignificant as Sakura. You really surprised Sakura." Sakura blushed. Even though she was from Xian Ting's side. However, she had to admit that when facing Jun Xiaoyaro, it was really hard for ordinary girls not to blush. "Ling Yang should be inside, right?" Jun Xiaoyaro asked. Sakura nodded slightly and said, "I'll go and inform Her Highness." "No need. She and I are old acquaintances." Jun Xiaoyaro smiled faintly and walked in with his hands behind his back. Sakura didn't dare to stop him. "Hiss, the son of God of the Jun family has entered Her Highness Ling Yang's cave. My goodness, could it be that some of the rumors are true? The first young emperor of the Xian Ting can't resist the charm of the son of God of the Jun family? TSK. Why do I feel like Gu Tiezi is the most miserable one? His Fushi holy physique is the most compatible with Ling Yang's holy physique of Emperor Wa. But the current situation is interesting. Don't forget that the Xian Ting is hiding an ancient young emperor with shocking strength and a great background. If Her Highness doesn't listen, maybe that ancient young emperor will come out and take charge." Chapter 1147. Jun Xiaoyao's entry into Ling Yang's cave undoubtedly attracted a lot of attention. After all, the identities of these 2 people were too sensitive. One was the son of God of the Jun family, and the other was the young emperor of the Xian Ting. Now, everyone knew about the power struggle between the Jun family and the Xian Ting. Especially after the hidden bloodline returned to the main bloodline, the Jun family's strength was complete. The Xian Ting even regarded the Jun family as the biggest threat. The Jun family was likely to impact the Xian Ting's position as the overlord. However, at such a critical juncture, the leaders of the younger generation of these 2 forces had a vague relationship with each other. This undoubtedly made many people's hearts burn with the fire of gossip. In Ling Yang's cave, a subtle fragrance flowed. Except for the maid Sakura, almost no one had entered Ling Yang's cave. As for the opposite sex, there was even less. Even Gu Tiezi had never entered. Jun Xiaoyaro was the only one. Soon, Jun Xiaoyaro came to the depths of the cave. He saw the beautiful figure sitting cross-legged on the crystal platform. She was beautiful, noble, and cold. Her skin was as delicate as mutton-fat jade, flowing with celestial light. Her facial features were exquisite, like a perfect creation carved by the hands of the heavens. Her neck was as white as a swan's, her arms were crystal clear, her waist was slender, and her legs were as white and flawless as ivory. All of this combined to form a picture of a peerless beauty. That kind of innate nobility and elegance was enough to produce a fatal poison to men. It was no wonder that peerless geniuses like Jiu Tiezi admired Ling Yang so much that they couldn't get her. If Jiang Shengyi was a pearl under the moon, Ling Yang was an incomparably precious gem that was shining brightly. Ling Yang, long time no see. Facing the stunning Xian Ting's young emperor, Zhun Xiaoyaro smiled with a calm expression. It was as if he was greeting an old friend whom he had not seen for a long time. Ling Yang's delicate body trembled slightly as she stared fixedly at Zhun Xiaoyaro with her jewel-like phoenix eyes. Back in the desolate border, it was indeed you, yet you didn't admit it. Ling Yang opened her mouth. Her voice was as clear and pleasant as a clear waterfall, but there was a trace of trembling in it. When she was training in desolate border, she sensed something, but didn't dare confirm it, fearing that she would end up disappointed. So what if I tell you? It'll just cause you more trouble, Zhun Xiaoyaro said. So you think that your life or death has nothing to do with me? Ling Yang suddenly became a little emotional and questioned him directly. Zhun Xiaoyaro said after a moment of silence. Isn't that so? Ling Yang clenched her slender hands tightly. She really wanted to bite the person in front of her. She and Zhun Xiaoyaro were originally enemies. Even when she first sent Fairy Yuan, it was only to monitor Zhun Xiaoyaro and gather information. After that, in the Black Abyss, she and Zhun Xiaoyaro experienced 100 lifetimes of love, and Zhun Xiaoyaro even left a mark on her thigh. At that time, she was very ashamed and resentful and swore to take revenge on Zhun Xiaoyaro. Then, in the world of the Ruins of God, she and Zhun Xiaoyaro were assigned to the same team. In the face of that terrifying divine obsession, Zhun Xiaoyaro stood in front of her. That was the first time Ling Yang felt warmth that she could rely on. Then, in that valley, the lover's flower bloomed. One day of the lover's flower, 1,000 years of lovesickness. It was only then that she realized that her feelings toward Zhun Xiaoyaro had subtly changed without her noticing. She even felt jealous in her heart. She was jealous of the relationship between Fairy Yuan and Zhun Xiaoyaro. Then, Fairy Yuan sacrificed herself, and her soul merged with Ling Yang. She didn't know who she was anymore. However, when she saw Zhun Xiaoyaro fall, she felt as if a large piece of her heart had been dug out, and it was empty. Later, during the war between the two worlds, when she saw Zhun Xiaoyaro appear again, what surged in her heart was heartfelt joy. This was not an emotion that she should have felt. As the young emperor of the Xian Ting, Zhun Xiaoyao's existence was an invisible threat to the entire Xian Ting. Therefore, Ling Yang was at a loss. When Zhun Xiaoyaro came to the Jiutian Immortal Academy, she did not appear because she did not know how to face him. When she heard Sakura say that Zhun Xiaoyaro had been with Jiang Luoli all this time, she also had a complicated feeling in her heart. It was indescribably complicated. So, you're just here to see me? Ling Yuan took a deep breath and calmed the emotions in her heart. Of course not. I came here with a purpose. Zhun Xiaoyaro was very calm. Ling Yang was silent, but a faint trace of disappointment flashed in her eyes. What am I thinking? In his eyes, I'm an enemy and an opponent. Ling Yang mocked herself in her heart. I want to take a look at the Xian Ting's Immortal Tribulation Sword Art, Zhun Xiaoyaro said indifferently. Immortal Tribulation Sword Art? Ling Yang was slightly taken aback. Although the Immortal Tribulation Sword Art was not a supreme grand theurgy, it was still one of the 5 great theurgies of the Sword Dao. As a member of the Zhun family, Zhun Xiaoyaro actually asked Ling Yang, the young emperor of the Xian Ting, for the Immortal Tribulation Sword Art so directly. If others knew about this, they would definitely think that Zhun Xiaoyaro was doing something useless. This was ridiculous. The Xian Ting and the Zhun family were competitors. As the young emperor of the Xian Ting, how could Ling Yang do something to help the enemy? You should know what you're talking about, right? Ling Yang said. Of course I know. If it were you, would you give your theurgy to someone from the enemy camp? I won't, Zhun Xiaoyaro said before changing the subject and continuing to speak. But it's useful to me. You should know your identity, and you should also know my position, Ling Yang said. That's true, but Zhang Xiaoyaro suddenly walked toward Ling Yang. Finally, he stood 3 feet in front of her. Ling Yuan's exquisite face, which was as white as snow, immediately blushed. I just want to know who you are. Zhang Xiaoyaro looked seriously into Ling Yang's eyes. What do you mean? Am I not me? Ling Yang's eyelashes fluttered, and she lowered her gaze, avoiding Zhang Xiaoyao's gaze. In fact, she should push Zhang Xiaoyaro away at this moment. But she couldn't do it. Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes were deep as he said, Do you still remember the girl who danced for me under the starry sky? Previously, when they parted, Fairy Yuan had danced for Zhang Xiaoyaro under the starry sky. A graceful dance of the goddess of Luo had captivated all living beings. It had also left a deep impression on Zhang Xiaoyaro. He just wanted to know how deeply Ling Yang had been influenced by Fairy Yuan. Perhaps their souls had already fused into one. Hearing Zhang Xiaoyao's words, Ling Yang's heart trembled. She finally mustered up her courage and looked at Zhang Xiaoyao. There seemed to be some kind of determination in her sparkling eyes. Zhang Xiaoyao, have you ever thought that maybe the Xian Ting and the Zhang family don't have to be on opposite sides? I am the young emperor of the Xian Ting, and you are the son of God of the Zhang family. If we join forces, we may be able to change the will of the 2 forces. Oh, what do you mean? Zhang Xiaoyao looked at Ling Yang. Ling Yang took a deep breath, and her plump chest rose and fell like a fruit. She finally mustered up the courage to speak. If the Zhang family and the Xian Ting make peace and even form an alliance, with your talent, you may be able to become the master of the Xian Ting in the future, and I will be the empress. The 2 of us can dominate the entire immortal realm. Chapter 1148. Ling Yuan's idea could be said to be shocking. If the Supreme Xian Ting and the Zhang family were to join forces, it was definitely enough to suppress the entire 9 Heavens immortal realm. Even if there were some factions under the surface, such as the Heaven Clan, it was impossible for them to completely overthrow the Xian Ting and the Zhang family. This was indeed an extremely crazy idea. But more importantly, Ling Yang said that Zhang Xiaoyaro could become the ruler of the Xian Ting in the future. And she would be the queen. It was clear what she meant. She almost told Zhang Xiaoyaro that she wanted to be his wife. Of course, with Ling Yang's arrogant personality, there was no way she would say something like that. However, Zhang Xiaoyaro shook his head and chuckled. Ling Yang, you're so silly that you're adorable. Zhang Xiaoyao, you. Ling Yang bit her lips. She was the princess of the Xian Ting, yet she was called silly. It was the first time. However, the flirtatious tone made Ling Yang blush. Zhang Xiaoyaro continued, There can't be 2 tigers on the same mountain, unless one is male and the other is female. Xian Ting, are you willing to be the female tiger? The Zhang family had always been domineering. Even if they were to join forces, they would still be in the position of absolute leader. Would the Supreme Xian Ting, who used to be the ruler of the 9 Heavens immortal realm, be willing to back down? Obviously not. Besides, the 9 immortal lineages of the Xian Ting were not necessarily united. Even if the immortal lineage of the Empress of Wa, where Ling Yang was willing, would the immortal lineage of Fuxi, where Jiu Tiezi was from, be willing? Therefore, Ling Yuan's idea could only be said to be naive. However, Zhang Xiaoyaro was also certain. Fairy Yuan's soul did affect Ling Yang. Besides, Ling Yang's feelings toward Zhang Xiaoyaro had changed after experiencing the 100 lives of love. Therefore, Ling Yang should not become his enemy. Zhang Xiaoyaro also didn't want to become enemies with Ling Yang. After all, Fairy Maiden Yuan's soul continued to exist in her body as Ling Yang. Sure enough, was I too naive? Ling Yang revealed a somewhat bitter smile. Could it be that the heavens wanted her and Zhang Xiaoyaro to be sandwiched between 2 opposing forces? That's not necessarily true. Who knows what will happen in the future? Maybe in the future, I'll be strong enough to make Xian Ting bow to me. Zhang Xiaoyaro smiled faintly. Looking at Zhang Xiaoyao's handsome smile, Ling Yang was momentarily stunned. Perhaps Zhang Xiaoyao's confidence was what attracted her as well. After all, how many people dared to say that they could make Xian Ting bow down to them? So, the immortal tribulation sword art. Zhang Xiaoyaro changed the topic. Ling Yang clenched her jade-like hands and then sighed. She took out a jade slip from her spatial Dharma artifact. "This is what you wanted," Ling Yang said. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled slightly, not surprised. He took the jade slip and roughly scanned it with his divine will. It was indeed the immortal tribulation sword art. "Thank you." Jun Xiaoyaro put away the jade slip. Then, out of politeness, he gently hugged Ling Yang. Ling Yang's delicate body tensed up, and her mind instantly went blank, as if her thoughts were broken. Sensing the warmth in Jun Xiaoyao's arms, Ling Yang finally realized that she was being hugged. A soul-deep tremor and joy surged out. It was not only her joy. It was also fairy maiden Yuan's joy. Jun Xiaoyaro quickly released her. Ling Yang felt a wave of emptiness in her heart again. "I won't take advantage of you. You can take this spring of life." Jun Xiaoyaro also took out some spring of life. Ling Yang accepted it in a daze, still reminiscing about that shallow hug. "All right, it's time for me to leave." Jun Xiaoyaro smiled faintly and turned to leave. "Wait." Ling Yang subconsciously called out to Jun Xiaoyaro. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't understand. "Didn't you ask me if I still remember that dance?" Ling Yang said faintly. Jun Xiaoyaro looked at Ling Yang. Ling Yang didn't say anything, but suddenly jumped up and began to dance. Ling Yang was wearing a snow-white glazed dress, and her dance was even more alluring. Like an elf under the moon, like an immortal banished to the moon. She was as graceful as a swan, like a swimming dragon. She was like a lotus emitting green waves. She was ethereal and agile, making people forget to eat. It was the goddess Luo's graceful dance. Jun Xiaoyaro was a little surprised too, but he still stood in place and enjoyed the dance. After all, no one in the Nine Heavens immortal realm was qualified enough to make Ling Yang dance alone. He had to admit that as a goddess, Ling Yang's dance was enough to amaze everyone. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes flickered. He was not Liu Xiaohui. He would not pretend to be a gentleman when it was time to enjoy the dance. Ling Yang blushed slightly after the dance. Perhaps it was because she was tired, or because she was dancing for Jun Xiaoyaro. "Not bad, I didn't expect Lady Empress's dance to be so stunning too," Jun Xiaoyaro said. Ling Yang was a little embarrassed after being complimented by Jun Xiaoyaro. That being said, she would not show it on her face. However, at this moment, Yu Ying's voice came from outside the cave. "Lady Empress, someone is coming." Ling Yang frowned. The atmosphere had finally calmed down, yet someone had to interrupt them. "Don't tell me it's Gu Tiezi. Tell him I'm not going to see him," Ling Yang said coldly. Gu Tiezi had been harassing her before, asking her what her attitude toward Jun Xiaoyaro was. Ling Yang did not even bother to see Gu Tiezi. "It's Gu Tiezi, but he's not the only one. There are 3 others who call themselves the 18 Horsemen of Yangyun. They seem to be the followers of the ancient young emperor." Ling Yuan was a little surprised when she heard this, and then she frowned slightly. An obscure glint flashed in Jun Xiaoyao's eyes. "The ancient young emperor of the Xian Ting, interesting." Jun Xiaoyaro chuckled. "I'll go take a look," Ling Yang said. She did not care about the 13 horsemen of Yangyun. However, the ancient young emperor of the Xian Ting was someone that even she had to treat with caution. "I'll go with you." Jun Xiaoyaro stepped forward. Ling Yuan was silent and did not say anything. However, there was an inexplicable sense of security in his heart. It was as if she had someone to rely on. "All right then, thank you," Ling Yang said awkwardly. With her personality, it was indeed not easy for her to say a word of thanks. Jun Xiaoyaro only smiled. At this moment, outside the grotto heaven, 4 figures stood there. One of them was wearing an 8-trigram robe. He had handsome features and a handsome figure. It was Gu Tiezi. The other 3 were 2 men and 1 woman. They wore armor of different colors. Their auras were extremely powerful, and their expressions were cold and arrogant. They were all riding on ferocious beasts such as the blue-eyed golden eagle and the hornless dragon. Many Immortal Academy prodigies were watching the show. "Are they the prodigies of the 18 Horsemen of Yangyun? I heard that they were the heroes of the same era as the mysterious ancient young emperor of the Xian Ting." All of them were extremely powerful. In the end, they were defeated by the young emperor of the Xian Ting and became his followers. They were sealed together. In terms of talent and strength, the 18 horsemen of Yangyun are definitely more outstanding than some seedlings. Otherwise, they would not have become the followers of the ancient young emperor. What are they doing here? It seems like it has something to do with the son of God of the Jun family. Maybe they think that Ling Yang is too close to the son of God of the Jun family. TSK, this is interesting. An ancient young emperor and a modern young emperor. Are they going to fight for power? Just as everyone was whispering to each other, a voice suddenly rang out. Two figures appeared in the grotto heaven. Ling Yang's expression was as cold as ice. In front of Jun Xiaoyao, she was like an ordinary girl. However, in front of others, she was the noble princess of an immortal lineage, the honorable young emperor. How dare you make a fuss in front of my grotto heaven? Do you not take my identity as a young emperor seriously? Ling Yang scolded coldly. She was as domineering as a queen. Chapter 1149. Ling Yang was tall and slender. Her crystal-like eyes were filled with coldness and indifference. Her aura was the epitome of the Xian Ting's young empress. When they saw Jun Xiaoyao and Ling Yang walking out together, many of the onlooking sky prides had a strange look in their eyes. Hiss, could it be that the rumors are true? Is the princess and the son of God of the Jun family really together? They don't look like an old couple, but they're not far off. I'm so envious of the son of God of the Jun family. He has the two beauties of the Jiang family by his side, and he can still flirt with the princess. TSK, the son of God is handsome and powerful. His family background is unparalleled. He has the confidence and qualifications. Look at yourself in the mirror. Do you think you have the same? Many of the disciples of the Immortal Academy whispered to each other with envious expressions. Jiyu Tie's eyes were cold when he saw this scene. Although he had already guessed it, he was still extremely unhappy when he saw it with his own eyes. He had pursued Ling Yang for so long, but Ling Yang didn't show any interest in him. On the contrary, she showed her feelings for Jun Xiaoyao, who was in the enemy camp. This made Jiyu Tie's admiration gradually turn into resentment and hatred. At this moment, the man riding the dragon, old 16 of the 18 horsemen of Yangyun, spoke up. The princess is the current young empress of the Xian Ting. We naturally wouldn't dare to disrespect her. Although 16th brother said so, his tone was indifferent and arrogant. Ling Yang's eyes were even colder. So, none of you will get down from your mounts. Oh, sorry. We were rude. Old 16 got down from the dragon with a mocking smile. The other two also got down from their mounts slowly. Seeing this scene, the disciples of the Immortal Academy were all surprised. The 18 horsemen of Yang Yun don't seem to be giving face to the young empress of Ling Yang. Of course. Their master is the most mysterious and honorable ancient young emperor of Xian Ting. Compared to that person, even Ling Yang, the current young emperor, is inferior in status. The 16th brother and the other two heard the words of the people around them and just smiled. Ling Yang turned to look at Jiyu Tiezi with a hint of disgust in his eyes. In the beginning, she did not think much of Jiyu Tiezi. However, Jiyu Tiezi was still a peerless figure. And now, the more Ling Yang looked at Jiyu Tiezi, the more he looked like a clown. Not to mention Jun Xiaoyao. He was not even qualified to be compared to Jun Xiaoyao. Did you bring them here? Ling Yang looked at Jiyu Tiezi with an unprecedentedly cold gaze. There was even more disgust than when he looked at a stranger. Ling Yang, you misunderstood. I'm just here to watch the show. Ling Yang's gaze made Jiyu Tiezi even more unhappy. However, on the surface, he still smiled faintly and showed his elegance. Jun Xiaoyao only watched from the side and did not say anything. In fact, the current Jiyu Tiezi was no different from a clown to him. It was quite interesting to see him jump up and down. Ling Yang snorted at Jiyu Tiezi's words. Jiyu Tiezi knew that Jun Xiaoyao came to find her, so he did this. Moreover, Jiyu Tiezi knew that Ling Yang would not pay attention to him if he came alone. Therefore, he came with 3 of the 18 horsemen of Yangyun. So why did you come to my cave abode and make a scene? Ling Yang said impatiently. Old 16 said calmly, no reason. I just feel that as the current young empress of the Xian Ting, your highness should have the attitude of a young empress. Young Empress Ling Yang should know who she should meet and who she should not meet. In other words, Ling Yang should not meet Jun Xiaoyaro at all. Hearing this, Ling Yuan felt an inexplicable surge of anger in her heart. She said coldly, as the young empress of the Xian Ting, I can meet whoever I want. Do I need to listen to your orders? Even if it was not for Jun Xiaoyaro, Old 16's attitude made Ling Yang angry. The other disciples of the Immortal Academy also shook their heads secretly. The 18 horsemen of Yang Yun were indeed a little too much. Although their master was the mysterious young empress of the ancient era. As the current young empress, Ling Yang's status was not low either. That's right. What right do you have to question young Empress Ling Yang? At this moment, a voice that was as clear as a lark's rang out from the crowd. A pretty girl in a silk dress with hundreds of flowers appeared. Her face was fair, and her bright eyes were bright and dazzling. Her hair was soft and silky, and her reflection could be seen. She was Wei Qianqian, the successor of the Elite Guard Immortal System, one of the 9 great immortal systems. The other successors with her were Kang Li of Kang Jie Immortal System, Yarou Qing of Shennong Immortal System, and Xing Lu of Xingtian Immortal System. However, they were all killed by Jun Xiaoyaro when they were training in the desolate borderlands. At that time, Wei Qianqian did not participate in the attack, so she was unharmed. Moreover, the Elite Guard Immortal System followed Empress Wa's lead. Therefore, Wei Qianqian was naturally on Ling Yang's side. Regardless of whether we have the right or not, did we say anything wrong? Old 16 said coldly. A mere successor of an immortal system was not enough to make him waver. In his mind, only their master, the ancient young empress, was the most honorable and extraordinary existence in all of Xian Ting. The other immortal systems, be it their successors or seedlings, or even Ling Yang, the young empress, could not compare to their master. If I say no, what will you do? Attack me? Ling Yang said coldly. That was her personality. If anyone dared to be forceful against her, she would be even more forceful. Of course, Jun Xiaoyaro was an exception. Of course not. After all, Your Highness is the current young empress. We are just reminding you to be mindful of your status, Old 16 said. At this moment, Ling Yuan's expression was already very cold. The 16th elder turned to look at Jun Xiaoyaro and said, Divine child of the Jun family, you relied on external forces to kill the ultimate catastrophe. You can say that you did your part for the mystic region. However, you should keep your distance from young Empress Ling Yang. After all, who knows if young Empress Ling Yang will be subdued by my master in the future. Once these words were spoken, the entire world fell silent. Everyone's face was filled with astonishment. The 18 steeds of Yang Yun dared to say such a thing. They had offended both Jun Xiaoyaro and Ling Yang. Gu Tiez's expression changed slightly. Could it be that the ancient young empress really wanted to subdue Ling Yang? But then he thought about it. Even if Ling Yang was subdued by the ancient young empress, it would still be better than being subdued by Jun Xiaoyaro. You! Ling Yang was so angry that her face turned white and her eyes trembled. If the 18 steeds of Yang Yun didn't have the support of the ancient young empress, she would definitely kill them with one slap. Just as Ling Yang was trembling with anger. However, a warm palm rested on her shoulder. Ling Yang turned around and saw Jun Xiaoyaro with a slight smile on his face. That smile was familiar and a little dangerous. It was a smile that could kill. Ling Yang's heart calmed down inexplicably. She felt a sense of warmth. Jun Xiaoyaro looked at Old 16 and the others with a faint smile on his face. Are you teaching me how to do things? Old 16 frowned when he sensed a dangerous aura. However, the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy strictly forbade infighting. Moreover, they were the ancient young empress's followers. Therefore, he thought that Jun Xiaoyaro wouldn't do anything rash. I'm not teaching you how to do things. I just want you to keep your distance from young Empress Ling Yang. As soon as Old 16 finished speaking, they were horrified to see a large hand that covered the sky and was shrouded in primal chaos chi pressing down on them. Jun Xiaoyao, How dare you? Chapter 1150. No one would have thought that Jun Xiaoyaro would attack them directly. It was simple, direct, clean, and straightforward. He didn't hesitate at all. He suppressed them as he wished. He killed them as he wished. He didn't care at all. He didn't care that this was the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy, a place where killing was strictly forbidden. Jun Xiaoyaro casually pressed down with his palm. It was as if the sky had collapsed. Jun Xiaoyao, don't underestimate us. The 16th brother and the other two shouted. As the followers of the ancient Xian Ting's young emperor, they were all very powerful. They were the most outstanding people of their time. The way Jun Xiaoyaro was acting made it seem as if he was suppressing ants. This feeling of contempt made them feel humiliated. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't say anything. He didn't want to waste time talking to these people. The palm of laws surrounded by chaotic mist pressed down. It was as if the sky had collapsed. The 16th brother, the other two, the 17th brother, and the 18th brother roared in unison. Even the beasts they were riding also roared and unleashed their strength. Their mounts alone were far more powerful than some of the sky prides. Bang! After the palm hit them, the three of them were sent flying while vomiting blood. Their eyes were filled with shock. Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, had a look of surprise in his eyes. To be able to take a casual strike from me, not bad. I've underestimated you. Jun Xiaoyaro was genuinely surprised, and he was not faking it. He was used to killing his opponents with a single palm. The 18 steeds of Yang Yun were the followers of the ancient young emperor. He was indeed surprised that they could take his palm. Although this palm strike was the most ordinary and unremarkable palm strike, it was still extremely powerful. It was enough to prove that the 18 steeds of Yang Yun were not weak. Then their master, the ancient young emperor, should really be something. Jun Xiaoyao, you, the 16th brother and the other two were vomiting blood. A casual palm hit had made them so embarrassed. He even said that he had underestimated them. It was as if it was an honor to be able to take his palm. To them, this was tantamount to double the humiliation. If that's the case, Jun Xiaoyao clenched his hand into a fist. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying power surged. Jun Xiaoyao used a fist technique that he hadn't used for a long time. With a punch, the power of reincarnation surged and shattered the heavens. 6 reincarnation vortexes, which were like 6 worlds, shot out with Jun Xiaoyao's fist. It was the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. This was a supreme fist technique. Because he had always been in the other side, he had never used this fist technique before. Now that he was back in the immortal realm, Jun Xiaoyaro was naturally able to use those secret techniques he had learned in the past without any scruples. Boom! A single punch was enough to shake the heavens and earth. Countless runes appeared in the void. Those were the defensive runes carved on the entire immortal island. Jun Xiaoyao's punch had activated the immortal island's defense. It was clear how powerful that punch was. Jun Xiaoyao, don't forget that this is the Immortal Academy. We're the young emperor's followers. Do you really dare to be so ruthless? The 16th brother roared and also took out his trump card. The 3 of them unleashed their divine abilities. Divine light shone brightly, and their auras were so powerful that many outlawed Skypride's eyelids twitched. Unfortunately, they were facing an invincible existence among the younger generation. It was only a single punch. Moreover, it was not the complete 6 paths of reincarnation fist. The 3 of them were instantly crushed. Blood splattered everywhere. The 3 mounts they were riding exploded at the same time. Their bodies and souls were destroyed. The 3 primordial spirits were terrified and wanted to flee far away. Jun Xiaoyaro shook his head and used his fingers as a sword. Dazzling immortal light appeared at his fingertips, pulsing in and out. Then, he pointed his finger. Hundreds of flying immortal lights appeared and formed many immortal swords. They slashed at the 3 primordial spirit. How is this possible? The immortal tribulation sword art? Ling Yang was stunned. He took a deep breath. Jun Xiaoyaro had only scanned the immortal tribulation sword art once with his divine telekinesis before. How could he use it just like that? Although he had not fully mastered it, Ling Yang was very surprised that he could use the immortal tribulation sword art. However, this was not a big deal to Zhang Xiaoyao. Putting aside his monstrous talent, he also had the deduction ability of the Battle God Catalogue and the Battle Sacred Technique. It was normal for him to be able to use it directly. But the 3 primordial spirits were destroyed by the immortal tribulation sword light. 3 of the 18 steeds of Yang Yun died just like that. They died so easily. Not bad. Zhang Xiaoyao nodded in satisfaction. Zhang Xiaoyao, you've gone too far. Gu Tiez's expression was a little ugly. He was the one who brought them here. Now that they were dead, there was a possibility that he would be blamed. Gu Tiezi, I haven't settled the score with you. Why don't you just be a clown? Zhang Xiaoyao took a step forward, and the space fluctuated. He appeared in front of Gu Tiezi as if he had teleported. Gu Tiezi reacted quickly. An 8 trigrams array appeared in front of him. That was despite the fact that Zhang Xiaoyao had been the one to beat him time and time again. He was the successor of the Fuxi celestial legacy after all, and he also had the Fuxi sacred body. He was not weak. He was once the strongest successor of the Xian Ting with Ling Yang. Even so, he was still weak in front of Zhang Xiaoyao. Zhang Xiaoyao pointed his finger and used the heaven-slashing art, surrounded by chaotic sword light. The 8 trigrams array was directly cut apart. Divine chains of order rushed out from between Zhang Xiaoyao's brows again, turning into the primitive Emperor Dao sword and slashing out again. Gu Tiezi activated the power of the Fuxi sacred body again. Dense trigrams appeared in the void, forming a wall of magical power and blocking the sword. However, Zhang Xiaoyao took the opportunity to break Gu Tiezi's defense with a punch. Then, he slapped out. Slap. A loud slap sent Gu Tiezi flying. He coughed up blood and retreated. Zhang Xiaoyao, he was slapped in the face in public, and in front of Ling Yang. This made Gu Tiezi furious. His eyes were like a poisonous snake that was about to devour its prey. Wow, such a face slapping. As expected of the son of God of the Zhang family. Wei Qianqian was also shocked. What's going on here? At this moment, a group of people came from afar. The one in the lead was the law-enforcing elder of the Immortal Academy. He was an expert of the divine creation realm. When he saw Zhang Xiaoyao, the corner of his eyes twitched slightly. It is indeed this great Buddha. The law-enforcing elder thought to himself. His expression was a little unnatural. Gu Tiezi's expression was gloomy. He glanced at Zhang Xiaoyao and turned to the law-enforcing elder. Zhang Xiaoyao ignored the rules of the Immortal Academy and killed 3 of the ancient young emperor's followers. How should we deal with him? This. The law-enforcing elder hesitated. However, he was cursing Gu Tiezi in his heart. Wasn't this deliberately making things difficult for him? What was Zhang Xiaoyao's identity? He was the savior of the immortal realm, a hero revered by millions of creatures. He came to the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy because the Immortal Academy Great Elder begged him, even using the ultimate land of creation as a condition. Cough. Young Master Zhang, what you are doing is wrong. The law-enforcing elder coughed dryly and looked at Zhang Xiaoyao with a slight frown. Oh! Zhang Xiaoyao stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the law-enforcing elder. The surrounding disciples of the Immortal Academy also nodded inwardly, as expected of the law-enforcing elder who was impartial and strict. His incorruptible and selfless attitude was well known throughout Immortal Academy. However, in the next moment, the law-enforcing elder coughed and said, "Young Master Zhang, aren't you tired of taking action personally? Next time, if something like this happens, just let this old man come. I want to see which blind person dares to disturb young master," the law-enforcing elder said righteously. The surrounding people were dumbfounded. Chapter 1151. Is this still the impartial law enforcement elder? Many Immortal Academy disciples were stunned. Many of them had been taught a lesson by the enforcement elder before. Even when facing the pride of an undying power, the eldest son of an ancient family, or even the pride of the Xian Ting, the enforcement elder was always fair and impartial, not showing any favoritism. That was why while many Immortal Academy disciples feared the enforcement elder, they also admired him greatly. But now, looking at this amiable and even somewhat fawning law enforcement elder, he felt that it was strange. Everyone felt that the enforcement elder's reputation had collapsed. Enforcement elder is too courteous. This Jun took action without permission and caused trouble for Immortal Academy. Jun Xiaoyaro cupped his hands and expressed his apology. One shouldn't hit a smiling person. Since the enforcement elder already had such an attitude, Jun Xiaoyaro naturally had to return the favor. Seeing Jun Xiaoyao's attitude, the enforcement elder's expression became even more amiable. In fact, he had his reasons for doing this. If the true ancient young emperor appeared and confronted Jun Xiaoyao, the enforcement elder would be in a dilemma. The law enforcement elder was in a dilemma and didn't know what to do. However, if it was just the young emperor's followers, the 18 steeds of Yang Yun, their status and importance couldn't be compared to Jun Xiaoyao's at all. Let me ask you, would you offend a true dragon for a few ants? It was to the extent where even if the true ancient young emperor appeared, his status might not be able to surpass Jun Xiaoyao's. That was why there was nothing wrong with the enforcement elder's favoritism. Son of God, don't worry. This time, it was because they took the initiative to provoke you that brought about this disaster. Even the Xian Ting can't find any reason or excuse. I will deal with this matter later, the enforcement elder said with a smile. Then I'll have to trouble Elder. If Elder is free in the future, you can visit the Jun family. Jun Xiaoyaro also said with a smile. Haha, that would naturally be my honor. The enforcement elder was even more so all smiles. To be able to establish good karma with Immortal Domain's most prosperous family was naturally extremely good. Then, the enforcement elder tidied up the situation a bit, having people clean up the scene, and then left. All of Immortal Academy's disciples saw this scene. They finally understood what was called a privileged class. It turned out that some people did not need to follow the rules. Things like rules were only created by the superior to the inferior, and the strong to the weak. Jun Xiaoyao's status could not be restricted by any rules. Gu Tiezi looked at Jun Xiaoyao, feeling indignant. Even though he also knew that the chances of Immortal Academy punishing Jun Xiaoyao were close to zero. However, he never expected that Immortal Academy would actually lick Jun Xiaoyao's boots like this. It really was because Jun Xiaoyao was wiping out the foreign disaster, establishing too great of a contribution. Immortal Academy could only hold him in the palm of their hands. Jun Xiaoyao also looked at Gu Tiezi. He didn't attack again. He had already killed 3 of the 18 cavalrymen of Yang Yun. If he killed Gu Tiezi now, then it would be the same as slapping Immortal Academy's face. In any case, Gu Tiezi was just a clown in Jun Xiaoyao's eyes. Whenever it was convenient, he could just kill him. Gu Tiezi turned to Ling Yang and said with an extremely cold tone, Ling Yang, you've always avoided talking about Jun Xiaoyao. Was that really the case? Gu Tiezi had already expected this. However, when he thought about how Ling Yang really did have special feelings for Jun Xiaoyao, he still felt resentment in his heart. Ling Yuan's pitilessly beautiful face was also very cold. Now, even without Jun Xiaoyao, she only felt a deep hatred for Gu Tiezi. Seeing Ling Yang's expression, Gu Tiezi said coldly, don't forget, I was the one who gave you the position of young emperor. Ling Yang's expression was also cold. Even without you, I can take the position of young emperor with my own strength. Good, very good. Ling Yang, is your Empress Wa's immortal lineage thinking of betraying my Xian Ting? Gu Tiezi was so angry that he laughed. Since there was already no hope, then he might as well shed all pretense of cordiality. When Ling Yuan heard this, she was so angry that her teeth itched. Gu Tiezi actually wanted to drag the entire Empress Wa's immortal lineage down with him. One could imagine how much pressure Empress Wa's immortal lineage would exert on her. After all, her identity was still too sensitive. At this time, Jun Xiaoyao stepped forward and said coldly, still making noise here. Do you really think I won't make a move? Gu Tiezi glanced at Jun Xiaoyao with fear. Then, he took a deep look at Ling Yuan. Ling Yang, I hope your position as young emperor will be stable. Who knows who will be the true leader of the Xianting in the future? Gu Tiezi left with a flick of his sleeve. Ling Yang's expression was a little ugly. She naturally knew what Gu Tiezi meant. That ancient young emperor had a lofty status, perhaps even higher than hers. At that time, what position would she be in? Submit to the ancient young emperor? Obviously not. Ling Yuan was a prideful woman. It was impossible for her to submit to others. Therefore, there would be no lack of conflict and turmoil in the future. When that time came, there would be another bloody struggle for power. This gave Ling Yang a headache. She found it troublesome. Don't worry, Sister Ling Yang. The elite guard lineage will always be on your side. Wei Chanxian stepped forward, as playful and beautiful as a skylark. Thank you for your support. Ling Yang nodded slightly. Currently, the leaders of the Xianting were Fuxi and Empress Wa. The other lineages were also strong, but it would be troublesome to compete for the leadership position. The elite guard lineage had always followed Empress Wa's lead. Kang Jie lineage, on the other hand, leaned toward Fuxi's lineage. As for the other lineages, some remained neutral, some had their own ambitions, and some had unclear intentions. There was only one thing that Ling Yang was most worried about. That ancient young emperor should be from Fuxi's lineage. Is this the son of God of the Jun family? This isn't our first time meeting, is it? Wei Chanxian turned to Jun Xiaoyao, her big eyes twinkling like stars. That's right. I saw you at Gu Tiezi and Fairy Yuan's wedding. Jun Xiaoyao said flatly. TSK, Gu Tiezi was really pitiful then. Of course, he's still pitiful now. Wei Chanxian stuck out her tongue, gloating. I killed Kang Li and the others when I was training in the desolate borderlands. Don't you mind? Jun Xiaoyao suddenly asked. Wei Chanxian had an indifferent expression. What does that have to do with me? Moreover, Kang Li is from Kang Jie lineage. They are on Fuxi's side. Wei Chanxian said. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes twinkled. It seemed that the internal strife within the Xianting was still intense. This was the difference between a faction and a clan. Although some clans might have internal strife, there was still a layer of bloodline within. For a behemoth like the Supreme Xianting, the internal power structure was complicated. On the surface, it looked like an absolute overlord. However, there were already all kinds of internal strife and hidden dangers. Compared to the Xianting, the Jun family was harmonious, friendly, and united to the extreme. This was the advantage that the Jun family had. A dark glint flickered in his eyes as he thought of that. Is it time to completely split the Xianting? Jun Xiaoyao muttered in his heart, as if he had another idea and plan. In fact, Jun Xiaoyao's strongest point was not his monstrous talent, nor was it his powerful strength. It was his schemes and wisdom that could surpass even the heavens. With Jun Xiaoyao around, it was no different from a fantasy for that ancient young emperor to stand out and unite the Xianting. Chapter 1152. The storm had finally come to an end. The crowd also gradually dispersed. Jun Xiaoyao's strength was undoubtedly deeply rooted in people's hearts. He even killed the ancient young emperor's follower without batting an eye. Even the law-enforcing elder turned a blind eye to it. Everyone understood that the Immortal Academy was like Jun Xiaoyao's backyard. He could still do whatever he wanted. All right, I've obtained the Immortal Tribulation Sword Art. I should return to my cave to cultivate. Jun Xiaoyao looked at Ling Yang and noticed that she was a little absent-minded. What's wrong? Jun Xiaoyao asked. That ancient young emperor should be from the Fuxi immortal lineage. Ling Yang felt a headache coming on. It would be fine if he was from other immortal lineage. But he was from the Fuxi immortal lineage. In the entire Xianting, the Fuxi immortal lineage could be said to be the most radical faction. It was also the faction with the deepest enmity toward the Jun family. After all, when Jun Xiaoyao died in the immortal ruins, the Jun family had once slapped them in the face. The Fuxi immortal lineage's enmity toward the Jun family was definitely much deeper than the Empress Wa immortal lineage. So it's because of this. It seems that because of me, You and the ancient young emperor had a conflict. If that's the case, then I won't come to you in the future and won't cause you any more trouble, Zhang Xiaoyaro said casually. No. It's not like that, Ling Yang hurriedly retorted, her jade-like hand subconsciously grabbing the corner of Zhang Xiaoyao's clothes. Zhang Xiaoyaro glanced at her. Ling Yang's cheeks were flushed red, and she withdrew her hand as if she had been electrocuted. The great Xian Ting young emperor was grabbing the corner of someone's clothes like a little girl. What was this? No, you misunderstood. Ling Yang's full breasts undulated. Don't worry, if you have any trouble in the future, you can come to me. I haven't met an opponent that interested me in a long time. Zhang Xiaoyaro seemed very indifferent toward the ancient young emperor. Ling Yang was also silent. If she really went to Zhang Xiaoyaro for help, she would be targeted by the other immortal orthodoxes. Oh right, I forgot to give you something. After pondering for a moment, Zhang Xiaoyaro took out another item from his spatial magical tool. It seemed to be made of snow-white silk, and there was a layer of hazy seven-colored radiance on it. This is... Ling Yang was stunned. This is a pair of stockings made from the silk of the seven-colored heavenly silkworm. Don't underestimate it. It's a top-notch supreme artifact, Zhang Xiaoyaro said. He had naturally seen Princess Divine Silkworm at the Jade Pool. Princess Divine Silkworm raised a rainbow heaven silkworm. Therefore, Zhang Xiaoyaro asked for some seven-colored heavenly silkworm silk from her. Then, he asked the blacksmiths in the clan to refine this pair of stockings. The reason why he did this was naturally to test Ling Yang. After all, in the past, Fairy Yuan loved to wear white silk. Ling Yang's face turned slightly red. She felt that there was something wrong with giving this thing. But she still took it. The snow-white stockings were incomparably soft. Under the illumination of the light, they reflected a seven-colored halo. It was truly beautiful. Aren't you going to try it on? Zhang Xiaoyaro asked. Ling Yang bit her red lips slightly, but she still put it on in front of Zhang Xiaoyaro. The silk stockings with a hazy rainbow-colored halo reflected the smooth and creamy skin of her legs. In addition, Ling Yang's figure was originally that of the tall and slender type. Her jade-like legs wrapped in stockings were especially slender and straight. One word. Wonderful. After putting it on, Ling Yang wore a snow-colored glazed dress. The hem of the dress was cut open, revealing the perfect lines of her long legs in stockings. It also slightly reflected a seven-colored halo. It was truly wonderful. There was an extreme temptation. It was as if one couldn't help but want to touch it. Zhang Xiaoyaro felt that if he really did this, Ling Yang shouldn't refuse. But he obviously wouldn't be so shameless. It was enough to admire it with the eyes of a gentleman. Zhang Xiaoyaro never denied that he was an old pervert. No, he wasn't old. You're still looking? Ling Yang glanced to the side. She looked both cold and inexplicably proud and cute. It suits you very well. Goodbye. Zhang Xiaoyaro turned around and was about to leave. You're doing this for her? Ling Yang suddenly said. She was naturally referring to Fairy Maiden Yuan. Zhang Xiaoyaro stopped in his tracks. Without looking back, he said, "Is there a difference?" After saying that, Zhang Xiaoyaro left. Ling Yang clenched her jade-like hands slightly. Was there a difference? Of course there was. Fairy Yuan was Fairy Yuan, and Ling Yang was Ling Yang. In the past, it was only Fairy Yuan who loved Zhang Xiaoyaro deeply. But now even she, with a long sigh, Ling Yang turned around and returned to the cave. What she should have a headache about next was the matter of that ancient young emperor. On the other side, Zhang Xiaoyaro also returned to his cave. Those people from the 18 steeds of Yang Yun were basically used to establish Zhang Xiaoyao's authority. Now, there was probably no one who dared to disturb him. Now that I have the immortal tribulation sword art, the next step is to try to fuse the essence of the 5 sword arts and comprehend the laws of the sword. Zhang Xiaoyaro also started to get down to business. Strength was the foundation. Immortal Slayer sword art, Primitive Emperor Dao sword art, Grass Symbol sword art, Heaven Cleaving art, Immortal Tribulation sword art. The 5 sword arts were all under Zhang Xiaoyao's control. Zhang Xiaoyao's talent went without saying. At such a young age, He had already created his own taboo technique, Genesis. The fusion of the five-sword principal divine skills was not too difficult for him. Next, Jun Xiaoyao used about 7 days to completely master the immortal tribulation sword art and reach the point of perfection. Other geniuses might need to spend several years, but Jun Xiaoyao only used 7 days. Alright, the next step is to think of a way to fuse the 5 sword arts and completely comprehend the essence of the sword. Jun Xiaoyao entered into a state of comprehension. On the other side, Immortal Academy held another meeting. I heard that there was some unrest in the Void Sky world, Immortal Academy's Great Elder said. That's right, but that place is close to the Realm Sea, and it is a place where only primordial spirits can enter, so it is normal for there to be unrest. And it is indeed easy for some passageways to connect to other realms to appear there, an elder replied. Long delays may lead to trouble. It is better to arrange for Immortal Academy's disciples to train there as soon as possible, Immortal Academy's Great Elder said. The group of elders nodded their heads in agreement. By the way, what do you all think about the dispute between the Jun family's Son of God and the Xianting? Immortal Academy's Great Elder asked again. All the elders present were silent. Jun family and Xianting, both sides were colossal giants. It could be said that they couldn't afford to offend either side. When Immortal Academy's Great Elder saw this, he said indifferently, Our Immortal Academy should maintain a neutral stance and not side with either side. Among the elders, Disciplinary Elder's expression became a bit awkward. It could be said that he was trying to curry favor with Jun Xiaoyao. However, Immortal Academy's Great Elder then said, However, I feel that from the younger generation, the Jun family might have more prospects. Immortal Academy's Great Elder's words made all of the elders' expressions tremble slightly. Chapter 1153. The Great Elder of Immortal Academy sometimes represented the attitude of Immortal Academy. In other words, from the perspective of Immortal Academy, the younger generation of the Jun family had a better future. Jun Xiaoyao was not the only exception. Jun Bieli, Jun Moxiao with the human emperor physique, and Jun Lingcong. The younger generation of the Jun family had a promising future. The Xianting also had Ling Yang, Jiu Tiezi, and the geniuses of various celestial heritages. But in general, they were only SOSO compared to the Jun family. Of course, the ancient young emperor of the Xianting had yet to be born, so no one could say what the future would be like. However, the Great Elder of Immortal Academy was obviously optimistic about the Jun family. The younger generation represented the future. Jun Xiaoyao alone from the Jun family was more than enough to overwhelm all the geniuses of the celestial court. The meeting was short. After the meeting, a piece of news was announced. 3 months later, the training in the Void Sky realm would begin. The news was no doubt like a boulder thrown into the sea, causing great waves in Immortal Academy. Countless geniuses rubbed their hands, eager to give it a try. Moreover, the training in the Void Sky realm would be conducted with the primordial spirit, which at least avoided some of the dangers. Some geniuses who were stronger in the primordial spirit path showed eagerness and excitement in their eyes. The geniuses who were not strong in the primordial spirit path were somewhat worried, fearing that they would not be able to get a good opportunity. Right, if the training in the Void Sky realm is held, the Son of God of the Jun family should be at a disadvantage. Yes, after all, the Son of God of the Jun family is best at crushing opponents with his physical body. He can crush any enemy with his palm. I wonder how his primordial spirit path is like. Compared to Jun Xiaoyao's sacred body of the ancients, not many people knew about his primordial spirit. After all, the primordial spirit of 3 lives was too rare. There were only a few of them in the world. If that is the case, maybe I can defeat the Son of God of the Jun family in the Void Sky realm, a genius said. Keep dreaming. Do you know what it means to be strong? The Son of God of the Jun family has an unparalleled physical body, so you think that his soul will be weak? You are too ignorant. There were also some geniuses who disagreed. They believed that Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit was not necessarily weaker than his physical body. In short, everyone was looking forward to the good fortune of the Void Heaven world. In the depths of Immortal Academy, within Jun Xiaoyao's heavenly passage, Jun Xiaoyao sat cross-legged in the void, surrounded by endless divine light of the great path. The trajectories of various runes interweaved to form incomparably profound and complicated patterns. Vaguely, there seemed to be God laws flowing. Every divine law was extremely sharp, as if they were tangible swordlight. After a period of comprehension, Jun Xiaoyao had also gradually merged the 5-sword Dao godly techniques together. Jun Xiaoyao was surprised to find that these 5 divine arts all seemed to have something in common. However, on second thought, as the saying goes, the myriad paths of the great Dao all lead to the same destination. In the end, they would all walk the same path. And that path was the rule of sword. At a certain moment, Jun Xiaoyao suddenly opened his eyes. Endless sword light seemed to appear in his eyes. Then, Jun Xiaoyao lightly stretched out his hand and used his fingers as a sword. A wisp of sword light appeared. This wisp of sword light was ordinary, but it seemed to be unstoppable. This was very strange. It was clearly just a wisp of sword light. However, it seemed to reflect the stars and all living things. Everything was reflected in this wisp of sword light. It was as if this wasn't a wisp of sword light, but a corner of a crack that reflected all worlds. This wisp of sword light casually swept into the void. Everything was silently annihilated. This was still Jun Xiaoyao controlling his strength, only using 1% of his strength. Otherwise, the entire Immortal Academy would be alarmed, and these heavenly passages would also be instantly torn apart and destroyed. I finally comprehended the fusion of the 5-sword Dao godly techniques. A faint smile appeared at the corner of Jun Xiaoyao's mouth. Immortal slaughtering sword art, origin emperor Dao sword, grass symbol sword art, heaven severing art, immortal tribulation sword art. The fusion of the 5-sword Dao godly techniques was, so sever. Jun Xiaoyao lightly opened his lips and spat out 4 words. So sever was the fusion of the 5-sword Dao godly techniques. It sounded very strange. Normal Buddhist scriptures had 4 words at the beginning, so sever heard. It meant that this was what I heard Buddha say. And what did so sever mean? It was as if Jun Xiaoyao was a supreme Buddha. His sword was his law, and all living things had to listen and bear it. All enemies and opponents could only bear this sword, almost unable to avoid it. It really was domineering beyond compare. So sever, what sever was the heart. This sword move wasn't just a physical attack. It could even sever the heart of others. The so-called sever was to sever one's own heart. Any other opponent or enemy, if their will wasn't firm, or if they didn't have a soul law or a special primordial spirit, would fall into an absolute disadvantage. Even their Dao heart might be severed by Jun Xiaoyao. It was that terrifying. And so sever shouldn't be just one move. There should be more to it. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were deep as he pondered. Since ancient times, there might be people who could gather the 5-sword Dao godly techniques. However, Jun Xiaoyao was the only one who could fuse the 5-sword Dao godly techniques, comprehend their essence, and create so sever. As Jun Xiaoyao comprehended so sever, in his body, there were also pieces of laws condensing. In the end, they turned into an incomparably sharp law. This law seemed to be able to cut through everything in the world. All living things, time, space, and the heart. It was the law of the sword. At this point, Jun Xiaoyao had already condensed 11 laws. He was already much stronger than the Supreme Realm with 9 laws. But this wasn't Jun Xiaoyao's limit. Jun Xiaoyao directly took out the 3-world copper coffin. This ancient artifact that had killed and refined the calamity had also refined many fragments of the heavenly laws, and it was filled with vigorous energy. Jun Xiaoyao could absorb it without worry. Continue to condense some of the immortal qi that I cultivated into laws. Right now, Jun Xiaoyao only had one goal, and that was to cultivate as many laws as possible. To maximize his talent. Then, he would forcefully break through to the next level. In this way, Jun Xiaoyao could almost always remain invincible among those of the same level. In fact, for Jun Xiaoyao, challenging those of a higher level in the 7th level of the Supreme Realm was as easy as eating and drinking. Next, Jun Xiaoyao immersed himself in cultivation. The entire Immortal Academy also fell into a state of restlessness, preparing to wait for the opportunity in the Void Sky world. In the nine heavens immortal realm, an incomparably vast world floated in the void like a universe egg. That was one of the nine heavens immortal realms, the Huntian immortal realm. Just like the Huangtian immortal realm was the headquarters of the Jun family, the Huntian immortal realm was the headquarters of the Xian Ting. Rumor had it that the ancient Xian Ting was built in the Huntian immortal realm. Later, the immortal realm suffered a calamity, and the ancient Xian Ting collapsed. 8 supreme experts stood out and established 8 great immortal heritages. Then, they persuaded a legendary demonic emperor who brought endless disasters to the immortal realm, the founder of the Jiuli demonic kingdom, Demon Emperor Kaiyu. Later, the Jiuli demonic kingdom merged with the Xian Ting and became the 9th great immortal heritage, the Kaiyu immortal heritage. From then on, the structure of the 9 great immortal heritages was determined. Then, with the Huntian immortal realm as the center, the Xian Ting spread its influence to the entire nine heavens immortal realm. In the end, it became the overlord of the immortal realm in the old era. If it weren't for the fact that the war between the two worlds was too vast, and the foreign realm invaded and severely damaged the Xian Ting, perhaps the entire immortal realm might still be under the control of the Xian Ting. At this moment, in an incomparably ancient star domain in the Huntian immortal realm, there was an ancient star surrounded by dense spiritual qi and great Tao divine laws. This ancient star was very strange. The spiritual qi was so dense that the ancient star was like a heart, about to beat loudly. In the core of the ancient star at the center, there was an ancient golden palace located in the middle of it. Outside the golden palace, there were some sealed immortal sources scattered around. Some of them were already broken. It was obvious that the seal on the immortal sources had long been broken. At the core of the golden palace, there was an enormous brilliant golden immortal source emitting an extraordinary spiritual qi. A blurry and otherworldly figure could be vaguely seen inside the golden immortal source. It was noble and unfathomable. At a certain moment, the golden immortal source began to tremble slightly. Cracks began to spread on its surface. Following that, there was a loud explosion. The immortal source shattered. A brilliant and sacred golden light shone upon the entire palace. It was like a brilliant sun that had descended upon this chaotic era. A sigh slowly sounded from the endless radiance. Everything is possible. It's like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, a shadow. It really is like a dream. I've returned to the starting point of this prosperous and chaotic era. Is it the will of the heavens that wants me to be the only protagonist of this era? Chapter 1154. The vast golden radiance surged like waves in the ocean. That was the surging of a massive amount of nomological power. It was hard to imagine who could condense so many nomological powers. Amidst the surging golden divine radiance from the cracked golden immortal source, a slender figure walked over calmly, as if he was the Son of God who had descended to the mortal world. He wore a loose white robe, and his skin was as clear as jade. He was more delicate and flawless than many women. His face was flawlessly handsome. Apart from Jun Xiaoyaro, no one could surpass him in terms of looks. Even the Ascension King, who was a pitilessly handsome man, was slightly overshadowed when he stood next to this man. He had golden hair that was more dazzling than the sun. It reached his ankles, and he was as elegant as an immortal. On the contrary, his eyes were pure silver in color, and they were unfathomable like the moon. Golden hair, silver eyes. He was a born immortal. But the most eye-catching thing wasn't his appearance. Instead, it was the aura that he was born with. He was too extraordinary. It was as if he was favored by the heavens. At the same time, there was a hint of nonchalance in his eyes, as if he didn't care about anything. It was a kind of arrogance that dominated everything. This man was the mysterious ancient young emperor sealed by the Xian Ting. He was Di Haotian, who was known as the Xian Ting's true dragon. He was the most powerful young emperor of the Xian Ting. The 18 steeds of Yang Yun were the most outstanding prodigies of that era. But they were suppressed by Di Haotian and became his follower. If he wasn't sealed, he was destined to become the master of the Xian Ting of that era. But he chose to seal himself. Because in Di Haotian's opinion, only the true golden age was worthy of his rise. And only in this era could he truly reach the end, become an unparalleled existence, and touch the realm of immortals. He succeeded. Or rather, he almost succeeded. The familiar aura of heaven and earth, yet it seems unfamiliar. Did I do it all over again? Di Haotian looked surprised. He sensed the familiar yet unfamiliar aura of heaven and earth. Di Haotian felt like he was in a dream. That was right. He had been reborn and returned to the starting point of this prosperous and chaotic world. He had returned to the past from the future. Perhaps the heavens have understood this young emperor's unwillingness. I'm clearly only one step away from unlocking the secret of becoming an immortal. As Di Haotian spoke, he took out an ancient weapon. It looked like a stone plate with many ancient, profound, and complicated patterns carved on it. It was like the orbit of the stars in the heavens, and also like the explanation of the great Tao of heaven and earth. However, this stone plate was incomplete. From the looks of it, it was only a quarter of its original size. Is it this fragment of the immortal stone plate that allowed me to be reborn at the beginning of this golden era? Di Haotian looked at the stone plate in his hand. Being reborn into the past was simply inconceivable. Although some of the utmost powerful ones were able to manifest time and the river of time, the utmost powerful ones were unable to do so. He could even project himself into the past and the future. But in the end, it was still limited by karma. It was an iron law that could not be changed. Even the mythical emperor, who was qualified to swim in the river of time and could grasp the past and future, would not easily disturb the laws of time. That would lead to unimaginable consequences and backlash. The price he would have to pay was not something even the mythical emperor could bear. Just disturbing the river of time would have such serious consequences. Not to mention directly returning to the past from the future. This was simply completely messing up karma. But Di Haotian had been reborn at the beginning of this golden era. In my previous life, I had not reached the peak and died halfway. As long as I opened that door, I would have been able to unlock the secret of becoming an immortal. Di Haotian took a deep breath and thought of the past. His emotions rose and fell like a tide. But what kind of existence was he? His temperament and Tao heart could be said to be perfect and flawless. He could easily control his emotions. But it doesn't matter. This fragment of the immortal stone plate has allowed me to return to the beginning of this great era. This is the will of the heavens. I was originally the young emperor of the Xianting generation. Coupled with the memories of the future, in this life, I will seize the opportunity and become the only protagonist. If these words were said by others, it would seem a little arrogant. But when it was said by Di Haotian, it sounded natural, as if it was the truth. But it was also true. Di Haotian had 3 great physiques and endless resources of the Xianting. In addition, he had experienced a lifetime and almost had the ability to predict the future. It was not difficult to become the only protagonist of this great era. At this moment, outside the Golden Palace, a few figures flashed and entered. When they saw Di Haotian, they all knelt on one knee on the ground. Greetings, young Emperor Haotian. These few figures were the few of the 18 steeds of Yangyun who had broken through the seal early. Yes, what is it? Di Haotian's expression was calm and composed. He already had absolute confidence that he could dominate this great era. Young Emperor Haotian, it's like this. Then, one of the 18 steeds of Yangyun told Di Haotian some news. He also told him that the 16th brother and the others had been killed by Zhun Xiaoyao. When he heard that the 16th brother and the others had been killed, Di Haotian's expression was incomparably calm. Although the 18 steeds of Yangyun were his followers, they were actually just tools in his hands. Zhun Xiaoyao? Di Haotian frowned slightly. As someone who had been reborn, he knew some things about the future. But in his memories of his rebirth, the most famous young generation of the Zhun family should be the Emperor Zhun Bieli, the human Emperor Zhun Moxiao, and the man with polychoria Zhun Lingcang. They were known as the 3 little giants of the Zhun family. In the future, they would indeed become the pillars of the Zhun family. But who was Zhun Xiaoyao? In his memories, there was no such person as Zhun Xiaoyao. Moreover, at this time, the hidden branch of the Zhun family should not have merged with the main branch. Also, Jun Xiaoyaro had killed the ultimate disaster. Di Haotian did not expect this at all. Everything was greatly different from his memories of his rebirth. It was as if there was an inexplicable existence that interfered with the normal timeline. Logically speaking, Jun Xiaoyaro should not exist. It was as if he had suddenly appeared in this world. All the changes were caused by the son of God of the Jun family. This attracted Di Haotian's attention. The world now is very different from the world in my memories. And all the changes seem to be because of the son of God of the Jun family. Di Haotian muttered to himself and fell into deep thought. He had great talent and strength, but his mind was not weak either. Seeing Di Haotian's somewhat absent-minded expression, a follower probed, "Young Emperor Haotian?" "Yes, is there anything else?" Di Haotian came back to his senses. His rebirth was a secret that belonged to him alone. It was absolutely impossible to tell others. Immortal Academy's Void Sky World is about to open, the follower said. Void Sky World. Di Haotian's eyes flashed with a dark light. In the era before he was sealed, he had also entered the Void Sky World. It was also because of this that he obtained this fragment of the immortal stone plate by chance. It is a bit nostalgic, Di Haotian said lightly. Chapter 1155. If he hadn't picked up this fragment of the immortal stone plate in the Void Sky World, he wouldn't have been reborn to the early stage of this golden era. Therefore, karma was naturally predestined. The Void Sky World, There are indeed many opportunities in it. In addition, if I remember correctly, there should be a group of special people appearing. Di Haotian calculated in his heart. As a reborn person, what was his greatest advantage? It was nothing more than knowing everything. He knew where some treasures were. He knew which enemies were the most threatening. He knew where there were opportunities and where there were disasters. To put it bluntly, Di Haotian was almost equivalent to an omniscient god. This was the greatest advantage of a reborn person. However, the only thing that made Di Haotian a little doubtful was, some things were already very different from what he remembered. For example, in his memory, the disaster of the foreign realm didn't destroy it. Instead, it brought a huge disaster to the immortal realm. Together with the dark turmoil that followed, it opened the prelude to the chaotic world. But now, the disaster of the foreign realm had been quelled. There was also the Jun family. In his memory, they hadn't merged, but in reality, the Jun family had been completely integrated. Therefore, Di Haotian believed that some things should have been different. But some things still hadn't changed. I know what to do about the Void Sky World, but now, we need time to familiarize ourselves with the aura of heaven and earth of this era, Di Haotian said indifferently. Yes, but Your Majesty, about the dead 16th prince and the others. A follower wanted to say something but hesitated. After the 18 steeds of Yang Yun were subdued by Di Haotian, they could be considered a close group. But now, 3 of them were killed. They couldn't take this lying down. The cause of this is the son of God of the Jun family and the current young emperor of Xianting, Di Haotian said. Jun Xiaoyaro was indeed an unfamiliar existence. In his memory, this person didn't exist. However, Ling Yuan did have one. In his memory, Ling Yang had indeed defeated Jiyu Tiezi of Fuxi immortal lineage in the competition for the position of young emperor. In addition, Ling Yang had another special identity. This special identity was related to the ancient Xianting, which had been destroyed for a long time. It was also related to an important figure during the ancient Xianting period. That person could even influence the entire structure of Xianting. Therefore, Di Haotian had to plan ahead. Ling Yang was one of the important methods he used to unify Xianting. As the young emperor of the Xianting, he has an unclear relationship with the son of God of the Jun family. This is indeed surprising, Di Haotian said calmly. In our hearts, Master is the only emperor in the entire Xianting. That's right. With Lord Young Emperor's status, you can easily dismiss the current young emperor. Several of his followers said in unison. This matter is not urgent. I have my own plans. Remember 16th brother's account. You all go out first and gather information. Di Haotian waved his sleeves and said, Yes, Master. Several of his followers cupped their hands and left. Di Haotian's expression was indifferent and calm. He was neither arrogant nor rash. Everything seemed to be under his control. Although some things have deviated from the original track, the general pattern is still the same. Next, we will consolidate at every step. We will look for the remaining 3 fragments of the immortal stone plate secretly. In addition, the Xian Ting, which has been divided into 9 immortal lineages, should also find a way to unite. It won't be long before that place reappears. That will be a great opportunity for the Xian Ting to reorganize its forces. There is also Ling Yang. She is an important chess piece. We can't lose her, and we can't let her be disturbed by the son of God of the Jun family. In addition, we have to communicate with that force in advance and seek opportunities for cooperation. In my memory, it should be the one from the Demon God Palace in the Huangtian mystic realm. Di Haotian sorted out his reborn memories. He sorted out some of the things that he needed to do in advance. These were all methods that he would use to seize opportunities in the future. After sorting out his thoughts, Di Haotian sat in the void with his legs crossed and merged with the aura of heaven and earth of this era. This was something that some ancient freaks, seed-level geniuses, would do, in order to perfectly integrate himself into this era. However, unlike others, Di Haotian was not just a sleeping genius. He was also a genius who had been reborn. Jun Xiaoyao, interesting. Everything has a cause and effect. But he seems to have appeared out of thin air, without any cause and effect. He even changed some of the history in my memory. Jun Xiaoyao, what kind of existence are you? Di Haotian narrowed his eyes slightly. His silver eyes that were as bright as the moon were incomparably deep. He knew everything that would happen in the future. However, he knew nothing about Jun Xiaoyao. Anyway, we will meet soon. When the time comes, I will meet this person who shouldn't have existed. Di Haotian smiled faintly. The news that the ancient young emperor of the Xian Ting, Di Haotian, had awakened from the immortal origin was deliberately covered up by him and did not directly spread. After all, Di Haotian wanted to consolidate his strength step by step. He didn't want to attract attention too early. On the Immortal Academy's side, many geniuses were preparing for the Void Sky world. 3 months passed quickly. In Jun Xiaoyao's cave residence, Jun Xiaoyao, dressed in snow-white clothes, sat cross-legged in the void. Around him, many power of laws surrounded him, like the orbits of the stars in the sky. Although the current Jun Xiaoyao's cultivation realm did not change, but his aura was much deeper than before. With the help of the pure energy obtained from refining the disaster in the 3-world bronze coffin. In this short period of time, Jun Xiaoyao once again condensed the creation immortal qi and the origin magnetic immortal qi into the creation law and the origin magnetic law. In other words, Jun Xiaoyao now had a total of 13 laws. This was already far more powerful than the supreme being of the extreme realm with 9 laws. And this was not Jun Xiaoyao's limit. Phew. Jun Xiaoyao opened his eyes and exhaled softly. 13 laws, barely enough, but it's still not enough, Jun Xiaoyao said to himself. If these words were to spread, who knew how many geniuses would be speechless? Then, as if there was some kind of perception, Jun Xiaoyao frowned slightly. He had a vague feeling that there was something in the dark that wanted to plot against him. As Jun Xiaoyao's 3-world primordial spirit became stronger, both his soul perception and his subconscious perception had grown stronger. However, there were too many people who wanted to deal with Jun Xiaoyao, and there were too many people who were hostile to him. Jun Xiaoyao himself could not count them. Could it be that the ancient young emperor has broken the seal? Jun Xiaoyao guessed. After all, the only person he had provoked recently was the ancient young emperor. I suddenly want to eat the chive box. Jun Xiaoyao mumbled to himself, seemingly implying something. If he wanted to eat the chive box, he had to find fresh ingredients. Therefore, Jun Xiaoyao had to go back to his old profession and become a farmer to harvest chives. Chapter 1156. After temporarily finishing his cultivation, Jun Xiaoyao also walked out of the cave with his hands behind his back. Outside the cave, a beautiful woman was standing there. She was dressed in plain clothes, and her long skirt was dragging on the ground. She was as gentle as water. When she saw Jun Xiaoyaro appear, a hint of joy appeared on her snow-white jade face. She instantly arrived in front of Jun Xiaoyaro. You came out of seclusion. This woman was naturally Luo Xiangling. Have you been waiting outside? Jun Xiaoyaro asked. Luo Xiangling nodded slightly and said, Ian, because I was afraid of disturbing you. Jun Xiaoyaro was silent when he heard this. This woman who followed him all the way from the foreign realm to the immortal domain could be said to be perfect in all aspects. Her strength was astonishing, and her appearance was beautiful. However, there was a trace of purity and persistence that did not belong to humans in her personality. Moreover, since she had decided on Jun Xiaoyaro, she would not change her mind. This made the current Jun Xiaoyaro somewhat unsure of how to deal with it. This was the meaning of the saying, if you don't marry, why flirt? Right now, he had just promised the two beauties of the Jiang family to be engaged. It was really not good to deal with Luo Xiangling's matter. He could only drag it out like this. Xiangling, you came here for, the Void Sky world is about to open. That is an opportunity that Immortal Academy promised to give you, Luo Xiangling said. She was afraid that Jun Xiaoyaro would miss this great opportunity because of his seclusion. I understand, Jun Xiaoyaro said. He was also very curious about what kind of great opportunity there was in that strange place that could only be entered with the primordial spirit. It was to the extent that even the Jun family would find it difficult to take out some of the opportunities there. If not for this opportunity, Jun Xiaoyaro would not have bothered to come to Immortal Academy. Big brother Xiaoyaro, in the distance, a clear voice like a silver bell sounded. It was Jiang Luoli. She also came out of seclusion and did not want to miss this opportunity in the Void Sky world. When she saw that Luo Xiangling was also there, Jiang Luoli restrained herself a little and nodded slightly. Greetings, Elder Luo. Luo Xiangling was a Boundary Emperor realm expert. Now, he was even an honorary elder of the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy. Jiang Luoli naturally did not dare to disrespect her. Jun Xiaoyaro glanced at Jiang Luoli. This girl had been in seclusion for a period of time, so she seemed to have become even more lively. Her fair forehead was swirling with light of wisdom. His entire body seemed to be covered with a layer of halo, extremely holy and pure. She was simply a little fairy that had transcended the mortal world. Looks like you've gained quite a lot from this closed-door training. Jun Xiaoyaro said with a faint smile as he sensed the obscure aura of the world in Jiang Luoli's body. Jiang Luoli was a little proud, and her eyes curved into crescents. Of course. Big brother Xiaoyaro did his best to help me, so I can't be a useless person. If not for the help of the World Tree, Jiang Luoli would have to wait for God knows how long to cultivate the origin spirit world in her body. Seeing Jiang Luoli's intimate attitude towards Jun Xiaoyaro, Luo Xiangling's eyes dimmed a little. Previously, she only knew about Jun Xiaoyaro in the foreign realm. She did not know what Jun Xiaoyaro had experienced before. Later on, she also asked around in the Immortal Academy. Only then did she know that Jun Xiaoyaro had such a rich and colorful life in the immortal domain. There was even such an outstanding and exceptional beauty who was infatuated with him. In comparison, Luo Xiangling felt that she had nothing. She only gave Jun Xiaoyaro some meager help in the foreign realm. For a moment, Luo Xiangling was silent. Jiang Luoli also reacted, her small eyes secretly giving Jun Xiaoyaro a look. There was nothing she could do. Who told her man to be so outstanding? He could even kidnap a beautiful aunt from the foreign realm to immortal domain. When he sensed the subtle awkwardness in the atmosphere, Jun Xiaoyaro released a dry cough. He would rather face 100 ultimate disasters than face this type of Azura battlefield. Right at this time, bell sounds suddenly rang out. It's the heaven bell, Jiang Luoli said. It's about time to set out. This time, only the primordial spirit will enter the void sky realm, so there shouldn't be much danger. I'm leaving first. After Luo Xiangling finished speaking, she turned around and left. Jun Xiaoyaro sighed inwardly, and then said, let's go. Let's see what kind of pleasant surprises there are in the ultimate natural luckland Immortal Academy's great elder spoke of. Immortal Academy, on a giant plaza floating in the void. Countless wind-breaking sounds rang out. Many figures descended here. However, compared to Immortal Academy's disciples, there weren't that many people who came. It was because this opportunity wasn't something just anyone had the qualifications to enter. Only the most outstanding heavenly talents had the qualifications to enter. That was why those who could enter the Void Sky realm were all the best of the best, seeds among seeds. That was why even though there were many heavenly talents who came, however, only a small portion of them could actually go. Most of them came to watch the show and eat melons. In the void, an elder in hemp robes stood there. He was Immortal Academy's leader this time, Immortal Academy's third elder, Shu Mo. Meanwhile, at this time, there were already a few heavenly talents who appeared. Ling Yang, Jiu Tiezi, the reincarnated Buddhist child Di, Long Yaro Ji Qingyi, and the others. Even though they weren't the top seed level heavenly talents who broke through the earth later. However, they were the most outstanding heroes of the present age, all of them reaching the end of the ancient path. From a certain perspective, they could be considered the most powerful seeds of the present age. Immortal Academy also nurtured them with great care. When they first entered Immortal Academy, they all granted them astonishing natural luck. Only then could they catch up to those slumbering seed-level figures in terms of cultivation. Meanwhile, some observant people noticed it. Ling Yang and Jiu Tiezi were both Xian Ting's most outstanding heavenly talents of the present age. However, they stood on opposite sides of each other. Many people were inwardly shocked. Could this be the beginning of the struggle for power in Xian Ting? Third Elder Shu Mo saw this scene and only watched from the sidelines. However, he secretly sighed in his heart. What a son of God of the Jun family. The great elder's words were indeed correct. In the future, Xian Ting might really fall into his hands. Of course, Shu Mo only thought about it and wouldn't say it out loud. After all, the current Xian Ting was still the overlord on the surface. There was also a trump card that hadn't been revealed yet. It was that ancient young emperor. If there was any young existence in Xian Ting who was qualified to face Jun Xiaoyaro head-on, it was probably only that ancient young emperor. Jiu Tiezi could only stand to the side now. As time passed, more and more heavenly talents came. Some of the Jun family's heavenly talents also showed up. Jun Lingtsang and the others were also cultivating in Immortal Academy. There were also Jun Xiaoyao's followers, as well as some people around him, such as Yu Chanhuan, Taiyin Jade Hair, Princess Longji, and the others. In fact, some people, such as Taiyin Jade Hair, were not qualified to enter the Void Sky realm. However, as long as they were related to Jun Xiaoyaro, even chickens and dogs would ascend to heaven, let alone a rabbit. Even the golden-winged roc, who had only followed Jun Xiaoyaro for a short period of time, received preferential treatment from Immortal Academy. This made many heavenly talents jealous. If they had known this would happen, they would have shamelessly followed Jun Xiaoyaro on Emperor Road and Ancient Road. However, it was useless now. Not to mention followers, even Jun Xiaoyao's maids and mounts were not ordinary people who could be Jun Xiaoyao's followers. Didn't they see that Jun Xiaoyao's mounts were all quasi-emperors? At this moment, two figures leisurely came from afar. They were Jun Xiaoyaro and Jiang Luoli. The place was instantly in an uproar. Chapter 1157. Everyone knew that. The opportunity in the Void Sky world this time was mostly because Immortal Academy wanted to rope in Jun Xiaoyaro to compensate him. All of Immortal Academy's geniuses could be considered to have benefited from Jun Xiaoyaro. Many of Immortal Academy's disciples revealed looks of reverence and gratitude. This was an instinctive worship of heroes. They already no longer treated Jun Xiaoyaro as someone of the same age. They all treated him as a godlike existence. Of course, there were also some geniuses whose expressions were unnatural. There was no need to mention Jiu Tiezi. Long Yaro was a bit guilty. After being beaten back to her original form by Jun Xiaoyaro, she had always maintained her little lowly appearance. She no longer had the dignity of the dragon race's empress and overlord body. Now, when she saw Jun Xiaoyaro, she felt like a mouse seeing a cat. She was extremely guilty, afraid that Jun Xiaoyaro would notice her and settle the score with her. Apart from that, there was also Ji Qingyi. When she saw Jun Xiaoyao, she subconsciously raised her jade-like hand and touched her veiled face. In the desolate border, she had also fought with Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao had forced her to reveal her secret, which was the imprint of the immortal demon diagram. He had also left a mark on her beautiful face created by the power of primal chaos. It was meant to give her a beating. At that time, Ji Qingyi was a bit confused and had some thoughts in her mind. Now, she understood that the foreign chaotic physique was Jun Xiaoyao. This made Ji Qingyi's shame and resentment turn into complicated feelings. She was very scheming. Even the human immortal physique Ji Daoyi was killed by her. However, when facing this man, Ji Qingyi always felt that she was being restricted. At that moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the distance. It was calm and carried a hint of mockery, as expected of the foreign war god who killed more than 10 seed-level geniuses. Now, he has become a great hero of the immortal realm. It really makes one sigh. Hearing this, the expressions of many geniuses changed. Who was it that dared to target Jun Xiaoyao like this? Many people looked over. In the distance, black flames swept out, and a hazy figure vaguely appeared. This figure caused many people to be shocked. It's him, the son of the immortal ancient emperor, Huang Nidao. The black flames seemed to be able to burn down the sky. It was the immortal fire unique to the immortal Phoenix clan. The Phoenix clan, like the Dragon clan, had a wide range of bloodlines. They were not limited to just one bloodline. Among the Dragon clan, there were supreme bloodlines like the ancient Void Dragon. The Phoenix clan naturally had them as well. The immortal Phoenix god was one of the best. It was one of the most ancient and powerful bloodlines of the Phoenix clan. There were very few people in this bloodline. Even in the demon Phoenix's ancient cave, it was rarely seen. The most famous supreme expert of the immortal divine Phoenix was naturally the immortal ancient emperor who had once dominated the immortal domain. It was rumored that the immortal ancient emperor had once used the immortal flames to refine a great emperor into a pool of emperor's origin. Many people believed that the immortal ancient emperor's strength had surpassed that of ordinary great emperors and had entered a higher realm. At this moment, when they saw the black flames, they were shocked. Everyone knew who the newcomer was. The undying ancient emperor's son, the little ancestor of the demon Phoenix ancient cave, Huang Nidao. The black flames dissipated, revealing the figure within. It was a young man dressed in a black and gold robe. His face was incomparably handsome and indifferent. There were ancient runes flickering between his eyebrows. There was a pair of black and gold phoenix wings on his back, surrounded by wisps of black immortal flames. His aura was also incomparably powerful and unfathomable. It was far more pressuring than the ordinary seed-level prodigies. However, it made sense. After all, he was the immortal ancient emperor's son and had the most direct ancient emperor bloodline. It could be said that the immortal ancient emperor's bloodline talents were all concentrated in Huang Nidao. The little ancestor of the demon Phoenix ancient cave, Huang Nidao, many prodigies fell silent. Huang Nidao. Just from the name alone, one could tell that the immortal ancient emperor had high hopes for his son. Nirvana Dao longevity. This name was not something that ordinary people could bear. In addition, he was the immortal ancient emperor's son, so his seniority in the demon Phoenix ancient cave was extremely high. Even some of the elders had to respectfully call him little ancestor when facing him. Previously, in the desolate border, the demon Phoenix ancient cave's Phoenix maiden that Jun Xiaoyao had killed could not be compared to Huang Nidao at all. One was an outstanding seed-level prodigy, while the other was a little ancestor-level existence. At this moment, Huang Nidao looked at Jun Xiaoyao with a calm expression. Right now, in the celestial realm, there were not many people who dared to face Jun Xiaoyao directly. Huang Nidao asked himself if he had the qualifications. Jun Xiaoyao glanced at Huang Nidao indifferently. His aura was indeed stronger than that of the other far ancient imperial seeds. However, that was all. I haven't even investigated the Archean royalty's dealings with the foreign realm, and the dog that bites is already barking. Jun Xiaoyao's reply was sharp. He not only pointed out the Archean royalty's shady actions, but also scolded Huang Nidao. Huang Nidao narrowed his eyes. Black flames flashed in his eyes. You killed the demon Phoenix Ancient Cave's Phoenix Maiden, which is a provocation to the demon Phoenix Ancient Cave. Completely offending the Archean royalty won't do you any good, not to mention that the Jun family is still suffering from the curse of calamity. In other words, the Jun family and Jun Xiaoyaro no longer had the right to be arrogant. Jun Xiaoyaro was too lazy to say anything else. At this moment, a crisp and childish voice rang out. That birdman, what are you so arrogant for? Come at me if you dare. This voice came from Jun Xiaoyaro, which shocked many people. Then, they saw a purple gold ant the size of a pinky standing on Jun Xiaoyao's shoulder. It was the divine demonic ant, Little Yi. Huang Nidao's eyes flashed coldly. Birdman, this was definitely an insult to the Phoenix race. However, when he saw little divine demonic ant, Huang Nidao's eyes narrowed. He could sense the surging imperial bloodline in the little demonic ant. It was about the same level as him. The son of the divine demonic emperor, Huang Nidao said coldly. The divine demonic emperor's name wasn't any weaker than the immortal ancient emperor's. He'd participated in the War of the Two Worlds. In the end, he'd attracted the help of a calamity-level immortal and several immortal kings to kill him. In terms of status and bloodline, little divine demonic ant wasn't any weaker than Huang Nidao. And now, little divine demonic ant was practically Jun Xiaoyao's follower. TSK. That's also the son of the divine demonic emperor. His status isn't lower than Huang Nidao's. Many prodigies were watching the show. The divine demonic emperor is a hero of the immortal region. I won't argue with you because of him. Huang Nidao flung his sleeves and didn't say anything else. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't bother to say anything else. Jiang Luoli shook her head and said sarcastically, Aya, you make it sound so cool. I've finally seen what it means to be thick-skinned. Being mocked by a beauty was obviously a bit uncomfortable for a man. Huang Nidao only snorted coldly. At this moment, another indifferent voice resounded. Why do you all have to be so hostile? Allah said that the harmony of all creatures is the true faith. This voice was extremely aloof and ethereal. It even carried the sound of the 1,000-spirit sacrifice and Sanskrit chants. Hearing this voice, many people's eyes shook. Child of Truth from the Ancient Orchid Church. Chapter 1158. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. There were auspicious clouds in the distance. A man in a holy priest robe stood among the clouds. He held a dazzling golden staff in his hand. His face was extremely holy and handsome. His body was enveloped in endless holy light and the light of faith. There was a dazzling golden halo of truth behind his head, emitting a strong power of faith. It was the child of truth of the Gulen sect. The Gulen sect was the same as the Western sect. They were both famous sects in the Nine Heavens immortal realm with countless believers. These sects were also the best at using the power of faith. At this moment, the seed of the Gulen sect, the child of truth, had appeared. No one knew what his real name was. Even the people of the Gulen sect only called him the child of truth. It was as if he was the embodiment of truth, representing the supreme nobility. The disaster of the foreign realm has just been quelled. I don't think we should have internal strife. Instead, we should seize this great opportunity to improve ourselves. The child of truth had a calm expression. He always had a holy and warm smile on his face. It made people feel like they were bathing in a spring breeze. He did have a good reputation among the younger generation. He rarely fought with others. If he didn't attack the people of the Demon Phoenix Ancient Cave first, I wouldn't have bothered to cause trouble, Huang Nidao said coldly. The child of truth smiled faintly and didn't say anything. He turned to look at Jun Xiaoyaro and sized him up before saying, as expected of the hero who saved the Nine Heavens immortal realm. No wonder you are worshipped by all the creatures. Jun Xiaoyaro also glanced at the child of truth expressionlessly. However, he secretly kept an eye on him in his heart. The child of truth had a calm smile on his face. He looked like a peacemaker who stood aloof from worldly affairs. However, Jun Xiaoyaro could vaguely sense that the child of truth was sizing him up with a faint passion in his eyes. Jun Xiaoyaro was able to guess the reason right away. The Dharma body of a god of faith. What was the Gulen sect best at? The cultivation of the power of faith. Zhun Xiaoyao's Dharma body was undoubtedly the ultimate embodiment of the power of faith. By borrowing the power of the divine Dharma body, Zhun Xiaoyao could even fight against the great dark hand behind the scenes of the other side, the ultimate disaster. Did the Gulen Holy Church covet the Dharma body of a god? Absolutely envious. Not to mention that the Zhun family had a conflict with the Gulen Church before. The branch of the Gulen cult in the Huangtian mystic realm was destroyed by the Zhun family. Zhun Xiaoyao himself had also killed a few prides of the sacred sect. Therefore, Zhun Xiaoyao would never believe that the Son of Truth was not hostile to him. Zhun Xiaoyao thought to himself, "What a smiling tiger. He has set his sights on my God-spirit doppelganger. The child of truth shouldn't be the only one who thought of this." Most likely, the upper echelons of the Gulen Church were thinking the same thing. If the Gulen Holy Church were to obtain the celestial body, wouldn't they be invincible? Compared to Huang Nidao's straightforward personality, he was much more direct. A smiling tiger like the Son of Truth was the one that needed to be wary of. However, you coveted my God of Faith's Dharma body. I'm also curious about the cultivation method of faith of the Gulen Church. Zhun Xiaoyao's expression did not change, but he had already begun to plot in his mind. If anyone dared to plot against him, he would plot back twice as hard. The Son of Truth's heart palpitated inexplicably. He looked at Zhun Xiaoyao and found that there was no strange expression on his face. Could it be that he has sensed a trace of intention? The Son of Truth thought to himself. It could be said that this was a kind of invisible game. The atmosphere at the scene was a little tense. Another figure appeared in the distance. Could it be that another big shot has appeared? Many of the prides were already numb. The most powerful geniuses of all kinds had appeared. This time, it was not just one or two people who appeared. Instead, 6 or 7 figures appeared at the same time. They were all riding various kinds of beasts. They were all powerful beasts and mutants. It's the 18 horsemen of Yang Yun. Could it be that the ancient young emperor has broken out of seclusion and appeared? When they saw the group of figures, the prides in the square were in an uproar. Now, who were the most eye-catching mysterious prodigies? Apart from the mysterious carnate chaotic body sealed in the door of chaos, it was the ancient young emperor of the Xian Ting. However, to everyone's disappointment, Li Qie's expression changed. Some of the people from the 18 horsemen of Yangyun had come. The ancient young emperor did not come. These powerful horsemen had arrived. There were both men and women, and each of them had a powerful aura. Not to mention themselves, even the mounts they were riding were more powerful than many of the other prodigies. This was normal. They were people of the same era as the ancient young emperor Di Haotian. They were all the most outstanding talents of that era. Zhun Xiaoyao had been able to kill old 16 and the other 2 without much effort before. That was because they were facing Zhun Xiaoyao. If it were any other seed-level prodigy, they would not be able to kill the people of the 18 horsemen of Yangyun so easily. Now, these 6 or 7 people had arrived with undisguised hostility. They could not take this lying down. As the ancient young emperor's followers, they had never been looked down upon like this before. Zhun Xiaoyao, how are you going to settle the score with the 16 horsemen? One of the horsemen asked coldly. Zhun Xiaoyao did not care at all. He did not even look at them. He ignored them. Enough. That's enough. Third Elder Shumo frowned. Third Elder, this has nothing to do with you. We are the young emperor's followers. We need to seek justice, another horseman said. The third elder's face darkened slightly. It seemed that the ancient young emperor had given them too much confidence. They did not even take him, an elder of the Academy of Immortal Academy, seriously. The horsemen all looked at Zhun Xiaoyao. Zhun Xiaoyao continued to treat them as air. It was as if he did not see them. This made it even harder for them to suppress the anger in their hearts. How dare you? You have no right to talk to the young master. Yi Yu, one of Zhun Xiaoyao's followers, stepped forward. That's right. You don't have the right to make the young master take you seriously. Wang Chuan also stepped forward. Goddess Eternal Calamity, Yang Qingying, and the others also stepped forward. Princess Longji stood up as well. Although she was not Zheng Xiaoyao's follower, she used to be his mount. Yu Chanhuan, Taiyin Jade Hair, and the others also stepped forward. The horsemen's expressions changed slightly. The successor of the nine-fingered sacred dragon emperor, the successor of the Yi clan, the sacred body of reincarnation, the sacred body of Taiyin, seeing the prodigies step forward one after another, even the 18 horsemen of Yenyun's expressions changed. All of those geniuses turned out to be Zheng Xiaoyao's followers, and none of them were any weaker than them. Perhaps only the top few of the 18 horsemen of Yangyun could stand shoulder to shoulder with these prodigies. In addition, some of the Zheng family's talents were also looking at them coldly. This made some of the members of the 18 horsemen of Yangyun feel that they were too impulsive. At this moment, the horsemen suddenly felt an extreme sense of danger. Whoosh! In the void, two beautiful figures appeared, bringing with them an unprecedented killing intent. They were Xian Yu and Su Hongyi. One of them was the former immortal execution bandit, an elf in the dark. The other was the descendant of the Dark Sky clan, the successor of the Dark Sky god. They were the two sharpest blades among Zheng Xiaoyao's followers. Whoosh! The two of them attacked immediately, wanting to kill the one who spoke rudely to Zheng Xiaoyao. Xian Yu held the sickle of the god of death in her hand, and with the heaven-devouring creation divine art from the hurricane lily's mother, she charged toward one of the horsemen. As for Su Hongyi, her blood-red eyes shone with killing intent. She held the Dark Sky mirror in her hand and used the unique sacrificial power of the Dark Sky clan. Boom! Puff! In the blink of an eye, two of the 18 horsemen of Yangyun, 13th and 15th, were killed. Chapter 1159. There was dead silence. No one expected the followers of Zheng Xiaoyao to be so decisive in their killing. Most importantly, the ones who did it were two beautiful girls. This kind of contrast caused many people to be extremely stunned. One of them is the immortal bandit, and the other is the girl in red. She was brought here by the son of God of the Zheng family. Both of them are so violent. Violent girls. I love them. But they are really brave. They even dared to kill the followers of the ancient young emperor. They will provoke a more serious conflict later. Many geniuses discussed and looked at Zheng Xiaoyao. It would be fine if the 16th brother and the others died in the beginning. But now, two more died. It was like slapping the ancient young emperor in the face again and again. No matter how calm a person was, they would not give up. However, to everyone's surprise, there was one thing that surprised them. Zheng Xiaoyao was expressionless and cold. It was as if he did not feel anything about his followers killing people, nor did he intend to stop them. After killing the two knights, Xian Yu and Su Hongyi turned around again and were about to kill the other knights. "How dare you! How dare you!" Several knights shouted. While they were angry, they also felt a chill in their hearts. Why are all of Zheng Xiaoyao's followers so freakishly powerful? They are practically the most powerful group of heroes of the era. They were not inferior to the big shots of the 18 horsemen of Yangyun. They began to regret being so impulsive. They did not want to seek justice without consulting the young emperor. At this moment, two more figures appeared in the void. A man and a woman. The man was riding a blood crow. He was muscular and had red hair. His muscles were covered with black and red demonic patterns. He grinned slightly, revealing teeth that looked like the teeth of a shark. It looked terrifying. He did not look like a human at all. He looked more like a demonic man. As for the other woman, she was riding a red-crowned crane. She was wearing a white dress and had an ethereal temperament. Her skin was snow-white and her eyes were bright. Her appearance was also extremely beautiful, causing people to have a good impression of her at first glance. The appearance of these two left many people astonished. The difference in temperament was too great. It was simply a beauty and the beast. It's Old 4 and Old 5 of the 18 Horsemen of Yangyun, by Luoxue and red-haired Ghosts. On the Xianting's side, a prodigy who knew a little about the history of the Xianting exclaimed in surprise. The 18 steeds of Yangyun were the strongest of their generation. However, they also vaguely judged their strength based on their rankings. Among the 18 riders, they were ranked 4th and 5th, which was enough to show their skills. I heard that the red-haired ghost has the bloodline of the demon race and is known as the human demon. He once killed many people and was later subdued by the ancient young emperor. There's also that by Luoxue. She's a goddess of a generation. Not only is she extremely powerful, she's also scheming. Because she admires that ancient young emperor, she willingly follows him. The 18 steeds of Yangyun were very famous during that era, so some records were left behind. At this moment, Bai Luoxue and red-haired ghost had appeared and blocked Shen Yu and Su Hongyi's attacks. The other knights also heaved a sigh of relief. Shen Yu and Su Hongyi retreated after their attacks failed. They stared coldly at Bai Luoxue and the others. The atmosphere was a bit tense. Zhun Xiaoyaro and the ancient young emperor of Xianting could be said to be important figures, although the two of them hadn't clashed yet. However, the followers under his command were already facing each other. The remaining knights stood beside Bai Luoxue and the others. On the other side, Yi Yu, Wang Chuan, Goddess Eternal Calamity, and Yang Qingying also stood out. Even if it was a battle between followers, it was enough to attract attention. That was because they were all the most outstanding geniuses. Bai Luoxue's beautiful eyes swept over and finally landed on Zhun Xiaoyao. She had to admit that even Bai Luoxue was stunned. This white-robed man was indeed very special. In terms of noble status and temperament, he wasn't inferior to her master at all. If Zhun Xiaoyaro had been born in the ancient young emperor's era, perhaps Bai Luoxue wouldn't necessarily have sided with the ancient young emperor. But now, an apologetic smile suddenly appeared on Bai Luoxue's face. Lord Son of God, please don't laugh at us. This is just an impulsive action. I hope you can forgive us, Son of God. After all, my master is looking forward to meeting Lord Son of God. Bai Luoxue's words surprised many people. Was she taking the initiative to give in? But some people secretly nodded. No wonder she was the brains of the 18 horsemen of Yangyun. Bai Luoxue was taking a step back in order to advance. She said that the ancient young emperor was looking forward to meeting Zhun Xiaoyaro. In other words, she didn't want Zhun Xiaoyaro to go too far. It wouldn't be good for anyone if they completely fell out. However, Bai Luoxue's face stiffened. Zhun Xiaoyaro still ignored her and ignored her. This made Bai Luoxue's face stiffen and awkward. After all, she was a heavenly lady and a follower of the young emperor. Zhun Xiaoyaro didn't even want to say a word to her. Mph, the red-haired ghost grinned. Sparks flew from his shark-like teeth. Compared to Bai Luoxue, he preferred to tear his enemies to shreds. All right, that's enough. It's about time. Let's get ready to go. Third Elder Shu Mo snorted when he saw the situation. If he didn't intervene, he would have a headache when these followers started fighting. Everyone on the 18 horsemen of Yenyun's side didn't look good. 2 of their people had died, but Elder Shu Mo didn't say anything. Now, he was trying to be the peacemaker. Please forgive us, Elder Shu Mo. We were too impulsive this time. Bai Luoxue's expression returned to normal. She looked deeply at Zhun Xiaoyaro. Zhun Xiaoyaro didn't care about an ant like Bai Luoxue at all. In terms of scheming, even the shrewd Ji Qingyi could only be crushed by him. Bai Luoxue couldn't even compare to Ji Qingyi. However, Zhun Xiaoyaro was more and more interested in the ancient young emperor. To be able to take in such a group of passable subordinates, the ancient young emperor must have some skills. But this was more interesting. Zhun Xiaoyaro needed opponents. Otherwise, it would be too lonely to be invincible in the world. Sorry, young master. We were too impulsive. We just couldn't stand them yelling at young master. Su Hongyi and Shen Yu stepped forward and lowered their heads slightly. They looked like little girls who had done something wrong and were waiting to be scolded. After all, what they did could be said to have exacerbated the conflict between Zhun Xiaoyaro and that ancient young emperor. The young emperor wasn't a simple character. Zhun Xiaoyaro stepped forward and raised his hand to pat the 2 girls' heads. You were indeed wrong. The 2 girls lowered their heads even more. You were wrong. You shouldn't have apologized to me for such things. So what if I killed him? Even if the sky falls, I'm here. Are you afraid that you can't afford to offend me? Zhun Xiaoyao's tone was calm, but it made everyone fall silent. This was Zheng Xiaoyao's domineering aura. So what if he was the ancient young emperor? If they offended him, so be it. Were they going to let their own people suffer? At this moment, Xian Yu, Su Hongyi, Zheng Xiaoyao's followers, and many people around them felt a surge of emotions. Zheng Xiaoyao was worth their lives. Chapter 1160. Zheng Xiaoyao's words were an encouragement to the people around him. As for the 18 steeds of Yang Yun, their faces were as dark as the bottom of a pot. Even Bai Luoxue, who usually didn't show her emotions, couldn't help but take a deep breath. He even said that she was scheming. Zheng Xiaoyao's few simple words were enough to win the hearts of everyone present. At this moment, Bai Luoxue felt that Zheng Xiaoyao might not be just a monstrous talent and outstanding strength. His vision, structure, intelligence, and calculation were definitely far superior to hers. No wonder he can beat the heavens by half a step. Bai Luoxue sighed in her heart. She had long known about Zheng Xiaoyao's game with the heavens. Now it seemed that he lived up to his reputation. After that, there were no more waves. The 18 steeds of Yang Yun and the others didn't act presumptuously anymore. However, it was a pity that the ancient young emperor didn't appear. The void sky world was close to the border of the realm sea and was very far from the celestial realm. Fortunately, there was an ancient teleportation array in the Immortal Academy that could teleport them to an area close to the realm sea. Okay, it's about time. Let's go to the void sky world. Third Elder Shu Mo waved his hand. Everyone directly entered the ancient teleportation array in the Immortal Academy. At this moment, the long-awaited mechanical voice of the system sounded in Zheng Xiaoyao's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host. A new check-in location has been refreshed. Please check in at the Void Sky World. Zheng Xiaoyao's expression didn't change much. The current check-in system was more like an auxiliary existence to him. It was better if it was. Even if it wasn't, Zheng Xiaoyao wouldn't decline because of it. His current confidence came from his own talent and strength, not the system. He had already established his power, and the check-in system was already icing on the cake. Of course, Zheng Xiaoyao was more than happy to accept the benefits for free. After everyone stepped into the teleportation array, heaven and earth instantly turned upside down. The surrounding space was distorted and strange. A feeling of time and space being separated appeared. After an instant, it also seemed like 1,000 years. Everyone arrived in a mysterious starry sky. This was only a transit point, not the destination. After that, they spent a few days passing through several ancient teleportation formations. When the distorted space was restored, they finally arrived at the end. Looking around, everyone held their breaths. They felt as if they had arrived at the end of the universe. The starry sky was dry, the stars were dim, and the ancient stars were shattered. Everything seemed desolate and primitive. There were no living creatures here. It was deathly still. It's so heavy. I feel like I'm being pressed down by something. Some of the geniuses frowned, feeling uncomfortable. There was a faint pressure that made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Third Elder Shu Mo stroked his beard and smiled faintly. You can't take it anymore? You have to understand that you all and Realm Sea are separated by a dam, moreover so far away. Hearing Elder Shu Mo's words, all the Sky Prides were stunned. Then, they suddenly heard the sound of waves crashing against the shore. How is this possible? This is the edge of the universe. How can there be the sound of waves? All the geniuses were puzzled as they looked in the direction of the voice. They could vaguely see a huge shadow in the distance, as if they had arrived at the end of the world. What is that? Could it be the border? Many of the geniuses were horrified, incomparably shocked. Before this, the most majestic structure they had seen was none other than the border. That was Immortal Domain's barrier, the first line of defense against the other side. It was simply like a wall that propped up heaven and earth. But now, everyone was indescribably shocked when they saw the huge barrier that stretched horizontally across the sky. That barrier was simply even more majestic than the border, moreover incomparably ancient. They couldn't see the end even if they looked up or down. When cultivators stood before that barrier, they were even more insignificant than ants. Of course that isn't the border, but rather the dam. Outside the dam is the endless realm sea. Third Elder Shumo said, his tone also carrying a sigh. What? The other side is the realm sea? Many of the geniuses sucked in a breath of air. They had heard of the realm sea since they were young. That was a place filled with endless dangers, its origins also extremely mysterious. It could be said to be the ultimate forbidden land of the endless heavens. Even if it was a great emperor, when crossing the realm sea, they might encounter many dangers. There were all types of strange and inconceivable things, there were just too many. There were many mysteries that no one could unravel even now. Right when everyone was shocked. Above the dam, there was suddenly a wave that surged, striking the dam, releasing a sound that shook the universe. However, what left everyone feeling suffocated was that they saw that the so-called waves were actually ancient realms one after another. There were many small worlds, planes, and star domains that were rising and falling. They were shattering at every moment, recombining. How is this possible? Those waves are actually all spatial worlds. This toppled all of the heavenly geniuses' imaginations. Even if their backgrounds were all extremely great, all of their horizons extraordinary. However, when they saw the world's most mysterious forbidden land, they still felt like their horizons were shallow. This completely refreshed their world view. Hong. At this time, within the waves, there was actually a giant human figure that appeared, the size of an ancient star. It released a world-shaking roar. From the looks of it, it should be trying to break free from the realm sea, climb up the dam. What kind of creature is that? Many heavenly geniuses were alarmed. That roar was simply about to shatter the heavens. Everyone felt that it was at least a quasi-emperor-level powerful being. However, immediately afterwards, the waves rushed over, and many ancient worlds shattered. That giant humanoid creature directly disappeared within the waves. At this moment, everyone was deathly silent, witnessing the terror of the realm sea. A powerful being, who was at least a quasi-emperor, disappeared without a trace under a single wave, vanishing completely. How terrifying was this? Moreover, this was only the outermost region of the realm sea, the place close to the dam. Then what if it was deeper in the realm sea? What kind of great terror would there be? There are also creatures in the realm sea? Some heavenly geniuses couldn't help but ask. Of course. The realm sea is also formed by many worlds, and there are also some slightly stable worlds that can give birth to creatures. There will always be some supreme experts born in the thousands of worlds, Elder Shumor explained. The heavenly geniuses present felt their hearts rise and fall. They saw the mysterious side of this world with their own eyes again. Realm sea, is one of Father's clones overseeing this place? Jun Xiaoyaro muttered to himself, also looking at the giant dam that was as tall as the sky. Jun Wuhui's 1 Qi into 3 Pure Ones oversaw the 3 great forbidden lands. Perhaps at this moment, on the other side of the dam, Jun Wuhui's figure was there. Jun Xiaoyaro had doubts in his heart. What was the reason for Jun Wuhui overseeing the realm sea? What was on the other side of the realm sea? Ding, congratulations to host, a new check-in location has been refreshed, please check in at the Endless Sea. Chapter 1161. The system's mechanical voice sounded in Jun Xiaoyao's mind again. Jun Xiaoyaro wasn't surprised. The realm sea was definitely an important place to sign in. He was very curious about what kind of rewards he could get from signing in such an important place. But now, Jun Xiaoyaro was just thinking about it. After all, even the arch would find it difficult to cross the realm sea. If there were no special opportunities, Jun Xiaoyaro would have to at least reach the boundary emperor realm before he could start exploring the realm sea. Oh right, I almost forgot. Previously, in the foreign domain, Zhu Yi of the Candle Dragon's lineage said that the Book of Time seemed to be in the realm sea. Collecting the 9 great heavenly books was something Jun Xiaoyaro had been doing all along. He vaguely felt that the 9 great heavenly books might be related to a huge secret. He had already collected 5 of the 9 great heavenly books. The Book of Time was a heavenly book that described the Tao of Time. It was also very important to Jun Xiaoyaro. It seems that whether it's to sign in or to find the Book of Time, I'll have to make a trip to the realm sea in the future, Jun Xiaoyaro thought. But it was obviously impossible in a short period of time. Alright, stop looking. That's not something you can consider now. Not to mention completely confirming your Tao, you have to at least reach the boundary Emperor realm before you are qualified to set foot in the damn world. Elder Shumor shook his head slightly. The curiosity of some of the geniuses present was piqued. Their eyes lit up, and they had another goal in their hearts. Alright, we'll be there after walking for a while, Elder Shumor said as he walked in front. After a few days, they finally arrived at the void sky realm. Looking around, it seemed like a withered universe riddled with holes. Dead stars were scattered all over like cold corpses. There were also all kinds of corroded ancient warships, shattered stars, and faintly discernible void cracks, and so on. There were also the remains of unknown ancient mutated beasts that were even larger than an ancient star, silently stagnating in the depths of the dark universe. Is this an ancient battlefield? One of the geniuses took a deep breath. That's right, the void sky realm seems to be a place of space-time chaos created by the collision of two supreme powerhouses' divine wills. What kind of battle would that be? I really can't imagine. It could be said that this trip had broadened the horizons of all the sky prides. Is that the void sky world? Suddenly, a paragon shouted. In the universe ahead, there was an area that looked like a giant egg. It was filled with a dense sense of space-time chaos. Various chaotic lights filled the air, and it was grotesque and variegated. It was like a place where space and time intersected. It was extremely chaotic. Elder Shu Mo brought them to a remnant star not far from the void sky world. There were many ancient formations carved on the ruined stars, carved down by some of Immortal Academy's older generation experts. Sitting cross-legged on these ancient arrays, the power of his primordial spirit could be directly transmitted into the void sky world. As long as not all of his origin spirits entered the void sky world, there would be no danger to his life. This was also the safest method. After that, you can enter the void sky world as your primordial spirit through the formation here. But remember, first, don't let your entire origin spirit leave your body. There are many dangers in the void sky world. If your origin spirit is destroyed, you'll really die. Second, because of the void sky world's special rules, if your origin spirit is destroyed inside, you won't be able to enter again for a short period of time. That's why you have to cherish this opportunity. If you're destroyed without obtaining any treasures, then that would be too much of a pity. Third, there are many places of space-time chaos in the void sky world. There might even be some ancient heroic spirits, the imprints of supreme experts, and other things. They are all extremely ancient and terrifying existences. There are also many void cracks that lead to unknown worlds. Don't be so curious, or else you'll be wasting this opportunity. Elder Shu Mo spoke in great detail. However, in reality, almost all of this was directed at Jun Xiaoyaro alone. After all, this time, Immortal Academy opened the void sky world to rope in Jun Xiaoyaro. If Jun Xiaoyaro came out without obtaining any benefits, then that wouldn't be too good. Many thanks for Elder's information. Jun Xiaoyaro nodded indifferently. Forget about his origin spirit, which was the origin spirit of 3 worlds. He even had extremely powerful defensive methods. The ancient Chaos Talisman, that was the ancient Chaos Great Emperor's origin spirit talisman. Its defense was unparalleled. Then, the group of prodigies all sat cross-legged on the ancient formation. Resplendent light surged out from the ancient formation like a tide, drowning the group of prodigies. They immediately felt as if their origin spirits were about to ascend and break free. Everyone produced a part of their origin spirits. Jun Xiaoyaro was the same. Space-time changed. When the scene before their eyes became clear again, Jun Xiaoyaro had already arrived at an extremely open place. This was like an ancient battlefield. The earth was shattered, and mountains and rivers were sinking. Looking up, the sky was filled with the universe's starry sky that was full of cracks. It was like the wreckage after a great battle. Jun Xiaoyao's origin spirit was incomparably solid. It was almost no different from a body of flesh and blood. This meant that his origin spirit Tao was not inferior to his origin spirit Tao. It was also the best of his generation. There was no one around him. Obviously, all the prodigies were randomly teleported into the void sky world and would not land in the same place. This feeling. Jun Xiaoyaro suddenly had an inexplicable feeling. He felt his blood boiling slightly. Although his physical body did not enter, that characteristic was still there. What was Jun Xiaoyao's original physique? The sacred body of the ancients. If it could make his blood boil, then it meant that, could it be that there is something about the sacred body in this void sky world? Jun Xiaoyaro was a little curious. He began to go deeper into the void sky world. As expected, the third elder's warning was not just empty words. Jun Xiaoyaro had just gone deep when he encountered some resistance. Suddenly, a grotesque scene appeared in front of him. It was as if it was reflecting an ancient battlefield. Many fragments of battlefields were imprinted on the ground. This void sky world was a strange treasure land created by the collision of the supreme expert's divine minds. There were many imprints that belonged to that era left behind. What kind of battle is this? It feels like the end of the world. Jun Xiaoyaro frowned and observed. At this moment, in the scene, a flying serpent roared at Jun Xiaoyao's origin spirit like a living creature. Jun Xiaoyaro frowned. A bright divine chain of order slashed out and turned into a small golden sword. It was the primitive Emperor Dao sword. The primitive Emperor Dao sword directly killed the flying serpent. Is this the ancient heroic spirit that the third elder mentioned? Jun Xiaoyaro murmured. The void sky world was quite strange. In that great war, the auras of many creatures and supreme experts who participated in the battle were imprinted and reflected in the world. Swoosh. On the other side, there were also knights riding white horses, terrifying demonic apes, transcendent fairies, and other heroic spirits. It could be said that if one's origin spirit was not strong, one might be directly killed by these ancient heroic spirits and lose the opportunity. However, Jun Xiaoyaro had the origin spirit of 3 lifetimes. His level had also reached the great perfection of the boundless realm. Moreover, he had cultivated the soul book. In terms of the path of the origin spirit and soul, he could be considered to have reached a certain extreme. Jun Xiaoyaro directly used the power of his origin spirit to activate the devouring power and refined the only black hole. Those ancient heroic spirits were directly sucked in and refined into the purest source of soul power. The power of my origin spirit has actually improved a little. Jun Xiaoyaro was surprised. His origin spirit was at the great perfection of the boundless realm. Logically speaking, it was already very difficult for him to improve, unless he directly broke through to the next realm. However, after devouring and refining these ancient heroic spirits, not only did his soul power improve a little, but it also became purer. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes lit up. These ancient heroic spirits might be the best nourishment to improve the level of his origin spirit. Chapter 1162. Jun Xiaoyao's perfected boundless primordial spirit could be said to be far superior to his peers. In this void sky world that mainly used soul power, he was almost a giant existence. However, if Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit level could continue to increase and reach the eternal sand level, that would be even more terrifying. What was a eternal sand level primordial spirit? A single thought was as numerous as the sand in the Ganges River. Comprehending a cultivation method and divine ability was like billions of living beings comprehending at the same time. In addition, even if the primordial spirit was attacked, it could manifest thousands of times in an instant. Thoughts were like the sand of the Ganges River, endless. It was undoubtedly extremely difficult to completely destroy a eternal sand-level primordial spirit. In other words, as long as Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit reached the eternal sand level, in the future, even if his physical body was destroyed, as long as his primordial spirit was not destroyed, even if only a wisp was left, he could still recover. This was the power of a eternal sand-level primordial spirit. Jun Xiaoyaro had been thinking about how to temper his primordial spirit. Now, it was good. The void sky world was the best place to temper his primordial spirit. Next, Jun Xiaoyaro naturally didn't have any scruples. Above his head, the black hole was spinning like a black sun. This black hole was condensed from the law of devouring, the devouring god demonic technique, the devouring great divine art, the devouring great divine ability, and other devouring methods. It was also one of Zhun Xiaoyao's major trump cards, a great killing move. Those ancient heroic spirits, the imprints of experts, and so on that charged over. They were almost unable to resist the devouring and refining of the black hole. Pure soul power poured into Zhun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit, as if he was enlightened. Zhun Xiaoyao strolled leisurely and went deeper. As for the other Immortal Academy disciples, they were not as calm as Zhun Xiaoyao. Many Immortal Academy disciples were killed by the ancient heroic spirits. In the end, they had no choice but to lose their chance. Somewhere in the void sky world, a figure was carefully exploring. It was one of the 18 steeds of Yang Yun. They had also entered the void sky world. Mph, Zhun Xiaoyao and his followers, when the young emperor appears, I wonder if you can still be so arrogant. This knight's eyes were cold. At this moment, his hair suddenly stood on end. Whoosh! A beautiful figure in a red dress rose up directly. A huge 8-armed demonic god appeared behind him, looking extremely terrifying. It also looked like the angry face of Buddha. It was surprisingly the foreign Black Heaven bloodline's Mo Hei Tian, Pucci. He had no chance to fight back at all. The primordial spirit of the night was directly destroyed. It was Su Hongyi, of course. You won't get any opportunities in the void sky world. Su Hongyi's blood-red eyes were extremely cold. It could be said that Zhun Xiaoyao's followers were completely at odds with the 18 steeds of Yang Yun. This was a battle between followers. At the same time, in other places, Zhun Xiaoyao's followers, such as Wang Chuan and Yi Yu, were also fighting with the other members of the 18 steeds of Yang Yun. In another realm, Bai Luoxue and the red-haired ghost appeared. After they entered the void sky world, they quickly met up. Bai Luoxue's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as she pondered. It seems like the followers of the Zhun family's Son of God are going to compete with the 18 steeds of Yang Yun. The red-haired ghost grinned, revealing a mouthful of sharp scarlet teeth. This is interesting. I haven't killed for a long time. Bai Luoxue sighed slightly and said, Young king, you won't miss it, right? You mean? The red-haired ghost's eyes narrowed. He was extremely murderous and unrestrained. Only Di Haotian, the young emperor of ancient times, had a kind of reverence. He would never forget that godlike figure who had subdued him with a single palm strike. Yes, young king will probably come to the void sky world, Bai Luoxue said, her beautiful eyes also shining. Haha, that's even better. There's not much time left for Zhun Xiaoyao and the others to be arrogant. The red-haired ghost grinned. As time went by, some Immortal Academy disciples also began to gradually enter the void sky world. The entire void sky world was extremely large, like a vast continent. However, the deeper they went, the more dangerous it would be. Zhun Xiaoyao went all the way, devouring and refining endless ancient heroic spirits. His goal was to go to the deepest part of the void sky world. This was because he still had the system's mission. As he devoured more and more heroic spirits, Zhun Xiaoyao also felt that his primordial spirit was growing stronger bit by bit. At this moment, powerful soul power fluctuations appeared in front of him. Some powerful strange beasts appeared. There was a snake, coiled like a mountain, with one head and 2 bodies. That was the ancient strange beast, Fei. There was also a strange beast, shaped like a red leopard, with 5 tails and 1 horn. That was the strange beast, who? What kind of war was it? Even these ancient strange beasts were dragged to the battlefield. Zhun Xiaoyao was even more puzzled. The war recorded in the void sky world should be the most vast war in ancient times. For example, the Zhun family's War of the Immortals also used some war beasts like Zhuyang. When Zhun Xiaoyao entered the void sky world, he faintly sensed his bloodline. Zhun Xiaoyao vaguely felt that the war recorded in the void sky world should be an extremely important war. Moreover, this war seemed to have been deliberately erased and not recorded in history. If I want to understand the situation, I still need to go into the depths of the void sky world and find the thing that caused my bloodline to sense it. Zhun Xiaoyao's eyes showed that he was thinking. Just as he was about to use the only black hole to refine the Fei, Hu, and other strange beasts' heroic spirits. Suddenly, on the other side, a vast holy light of truth surged and directly enveloped those strange beasts' heroic spirits. Jun Xiaoyaro looked at the person who came. He was wearing a pure white priest robe and had a sacred and handsome face. There was a truth-divine halo behind his head that emitted the light of faith. It was the Son of Truth of the Gulan Church. He also saw Jun Xiaoyaro and smiled slightly. Brother Jun, what a coincidence. The Son of Truth had a transcendent and peaceful temperament. That faint smile was like a spring breeze, and people would subconsciously have a good impression of him. However, it was also because he was a missionary. How could he not make people have a good impression of him? Are we familiar with each other? Jun Xiaoyaro replied indifferently. The Son of Truth wanted to play tricks with him. He was too inexperienced. The Son of Truth didn't mind Jun Xiaoyao's attitude and still smiled indifferently. Brother Jun, there was indeed some misunderstanding between our two forces before, but that's all in the past. The great God has said that we can't change the past, but we can create the future. Oh, so. Jun Xiaoyaro raised his eyelids and glanced at the Son of Truth. He didn't take him seriously when he kept calling him the True Lord. The so-called True Lord of Gulan was like the one-armed Nether King of the Nether King bloodline. Although he had already become a mythical existence, he was only an extremely powerful person. Could he be called a god? As someone who had faced the ultimate calamity, Jun Xiaoyaro wasn't too interested in this kind of god. I think that our two forces can turn hostility into friendship. If Brother Jun is interested, you can even join our church, the Son of Truth said. That came as a bit of a surprise to him. Why? Jun Xiaoyaro asked. The Son of Truth smiled and said, Brother Jun is now a great hero who saved the celestial realm. You are also worshipped by all living beings and have a huge amount of faith power. It would be a pity if such a huge amount of faith power was wasted. It just so happens that our Gulan Church has a method to cultivate the power of faith. In fact, my primordial spirit is the same. The Son of Truth said as the light of faith bloomed from his body. His primordial spirit wasn't an ordinary primordial spirit. It was an extremely special and rare faith primordial spirit. Chapter 1163. Most cultivators' primordial spirits were ordinary primordial spirits. However, there were also a few monsters' primordial spirits that were special. The so-called special primordial spirits were similar to special constitutions. They were both extremely rare and rare existences. For example, some people were born with lightning primordial spirits. Even when transcending tribulations, their primordial spirits were not afraid of being destroyed by the heavenly tribulation. They could even absorb the power of the heavenly tribulation. Another example was the Western Paradise sect. They were most famous for their reincarnated primordial spirits. Primordial spirits had the special ability to reincarnate. For example, the reincarnated Buddha Di was rumored to be the reincarnation of a Buddhist almighty. Jun Xiaoyao's three primordial spirits were the rarest and most powerful special primordial spirits. He could split his thoughts into three and manifest the past, present, and future primordial spirits. In the future, if the three primordial spirits fused into one, it would produce a qualitative transformation. Right now, the faith primordial spirit that the Son of Truth displayed was also a special primordial spirit. This primordial spirit was nourished by the power of faith. As long as the faith was endless, it would be difficult for the primordial spirit to be destroyed. This was also the reason why the Son of Truth was so confident in facing Jun Xiaoyao. In terms of primordial spirits, it was difficult for anyone to suppress him. An imperishable sect like the Gulan sect was originally good at controlling the power of faith and souls. How about it, Brother Jun? As long as you join my sect, I can directly teach you the immortal Sutra of Faith, the Son of Truth said with a smile. Is it that good? I don't have to pay any price. Jun Xiaoyao also smiled faintly. However, his smile was a little indifferent. If the Gulan Holy Church were to let bygones be bygones and be considerate of him, he would feel uncomfortable instead. But unfortunately, it was just a case of a weasel paying a visit to a chicken. It seemed that the Gulan sect was not only coveting his god's Dharma body. In fact, They were even a little jealous that he could receive the worship and faith of all living beings. Jun Xiaoyaro had no doubt that if he really joined the Gulen sect, he was afraid that the Gulen sect would directly squeeze the power of faith dry. "Brother Jun, you must be joking. How could we let you pay the price?" the Son of Truth said with a faint smile. No matter what the situation was, at least for now, the Child of Truth wouldn't say anything bad. Jun Xiaoyaro shook his head lightly. "Is that so? I thought your Gulen church was very interested in my belief God's Dharma body." A dark light flashed in the eyes of the Son of Truth. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't tempted. Everyone had witnessed the strength of the godly spiritual Dharma body. Although it required a massive amount of faith as fuel, its power was absolutely terrifying. Otherwise, he would not have been able to face the ultimate calamity head-on. The Archean royalty was interested in Jun Xiaoyao's three-world coffin and black blood. On the other hand, the Gulen church was eyeing Jun Xiaoyao's godly spirit Dharma body. Hihi, brother Jun really likes to joke around. As the son of God of the Jun family, there are not many people in the celestial realm who would dare to provoke you, the Son of Truth said. Jun Xiaoyaro sighed. It's a pity that I, Jun Xiaoyaro, don't believe in heaven, earth, deities, and Buddhas, let alone God. I am my own God. Jun Xiaoyao's words were indifferent. If he had to find an existence to believe in, then Jun Xiaoyaro could only believe in himself. The Son of Truth's pupils shrank. Jun Xiaoyaro really had no scruples. However, before the Son of Truth could say anything, Jun Xiaoyaro then continued, "However, if we were to work together, there is one more possibility." "Oh, brother Jun, please say it." The Son of Truth's eyes lit up. As long as he could cooperate with Jun Xiaoyaro, then in the future, he could slowly explore the mystery of the godly spiritual Dharma body. Jun Xiaoyaro then said plainly, "You people of the Gulen cult are free to cast aside that so-called true Lord and worship me instead. I, Jun Xiaoyaro, can become your new god and lead you to the light." Boom. As soon as these words came out, it was as if there were 100,000 thunderbolts in the Son of Truth's mind. His expression changed in an instant. The smile on his face stiffened, and he could no longer pretend. For these imperishable sects, faith was something absolutely unshakable. Jun Xiaoyao's words were simply blasphemy against their God. This was an absolutely unforgivable sin. Jun Xiaoyao, it seems that you don't have the sincerity to cooperate with the Gulen church. The Son of Truth's face turned completely cold. At this moment, he completely understood. It turned out that Jun Xiaoyao had seen through his intentions from the beginning. He was just teasing him as if he was teasing a fool. This made the warm smile on the Son of Truth's face completely disappear, and there was a coldness as cold as ice. Jun Xiaoyao tilted his head slightly and continued, "Cooperation? Is the Gulen church worthy of it? The only way for you to survive now is to submit to the imperial court. In this way, I can forgive you for coveting my godly spiritual Dharma body. Jun Xiaoyao, don't think that you are the only one in this world," the Son of Truth said coldly, and the golden divine ring of truth behind his head bloomed with endless light. At this point, there was no need for him to pretend anymore. Since they were destined to be on the opposite side, what he needed to do now was to expel Jun Xiaoyaro from the Void Sky world so that he could not obtain the opportunities in the Void Sky world. If he were to fight with Jun Xiaoyaro face to face, the Son of Truth would definitely be extremely cautious. And he was not too confident. But now, both of them were in the state of primordial spirits. The Son of Truth was a special primordial spirit of faith and was very difficult to destroy. That was why he was so confident. The true Lord has said that those who have done wrong must be punished. The Son of Truth's body surged with the light of faith, like a golden sun. The sound of countless people praying and worshipping could be heard. Under this light, Jun Xiaoyao even felt that there were endless voices ringing in his ears. They wanted him to submit to the great true Lord of Gulen. Ha! Ridiculous. Jun Xiaoyao's face was cold. In the future, he would also have a religion that believed in him, the Church of Destiny. His goal was to let the Church of Destiny surpass the Gulen Church, the Western sect, and other top sects. So now, how could he believe in the true Lord of Gulen? A divine chain of order shot out from between Zhang Xiaoyao's eyebrows, turning into a small golden sword with a sharp power that could cut the heavens and the earth. The primitive Emperor Dao sword. Seeing this, the Son of Truth muttered something in his mouth. One by one, strange golden words were spat out from his mouth, floating in the void. Those were the special sacrificial words of the Gulan Church. Rumor had it that they were created by the mysterious true Lord of Gulan and had a special mystic power. Many strange words formed chains and collided with the primitive Emperor Dao sword, bursting out waves. Supreme Mantra. The Son of Truth was incomparably transcendent and sacred as he silently chanted the mantra of the Gulan Church. Many golden words turned into chains of order and rushed toward Zhang Xiaoyao. This kind of powerful mantra could imprison one's soul. The control of primordial spirits and souls was what these religions were best at. As for Zhang Xiaoyao, his expression was indifferent as he summoned his primordial spirit. An incomparably magnificent Mahavairochana Dharma form appeared, like a golden mountain, suppressing the world. That's the primordial spirit technique of the Western sect, the Son of Truth said in surprise. Chapter 1164. The Son of Truth was really a little surprised. He didn't expect Zhang Xiaoyao to be able to use the primordial spirit technique of the Western sect. Among the great sects, there were only a few that could compete with the Gulan sect for believers. The Western sect was one of them. Their foundation was too deep, and they had endless believers from ancient times to the present. Even the Gulan sect couldn't suppress the Western sect. And these two sects often had conflicts because of competing for believers. No wonder Zhang Xiaoyao is unwilling to submit to the embrace of Allah. It turns out that you actually believe in the Western sect, the Son of Truth said coldly. For these sects, believing in heresy was heresy. Zhang Xiaoyao sneered and said, "What do you mean by belief? These techniques are for me to use. I am the only master." What Zhang Xiaoyao hated the most were those who nagged about things like that. It was better to believe in himself than anything else. As long as he had enough strength. What was a god? Rumble. The Mahavairochana Dharma idol seemed to be able to suppress the 3,000 boundless worlds as it pressed down on the Son of Truth. Those supreme incantation chains were shattered by the tremors. Seeing this, the Son of Truth's expression changed slightly. Zhang Xiaoyao's aura was too strong. Did all of your primordial spirit come in? The Son of Truth asked in surprise. Your imagination is too poor. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaoyao continued to urge his vast primordial spirit power. Endless, boundless, lifeless, boundless perfection. The Son of Truth's pupils shook. This kind of vigorous primordial spirit power was definitely the power of the boundless perfection. It was only a little bit away from the legendary supreme eternal sand level. How is this possible? Zhang Xiaoyao is only a supreme. How can he have such a strong primordial spirit power? And isn't he mainly cultivating the physical body? How can his primordial spirit be cultivated to such a level? The Son of Truth's worldview was refreshed. It turned out that there was really someone who could cultivate both the physical body and primordial spirit to the extreme. The Son of Truth's face darkened as he continued to use his ultimate skill. He threw out a punch, and the surging power of faith surged. The truth divine ring behind his head was spinning, releasing a bright light of truth. Universal Truth Fist. This was one of the great techniques of the Gulan sect. When he punched out, it was as if he could make others understand what the true truth was. Of course, this was a physical truth. Dong. The Universal Truth Divine Fist landed on the Mahavairochana Dharma form, giving off a majestic sound like the morning bell and evening drum. Upon seeing this, Zhang Xiaoyao cast the primordial spirit reincarnation technique. It was the samsara tribulation. In an instant, the will of the Son of Truth seemed to have fallen into some kind of vortex. That was a cycle of reincarnation after reincarnation, and it was enough to make anyone go crazy. However, the Son of Truth was, after all, the strongest sky pride of the ancient Orchid sect. No calamity can shake my faith in Allah. The Child of Truth silently chanted the mantra of the ancient Orchid sect to get rid of his delusions. Soon, he regained his composure. However, Jun Xiaoyaro used the future primordial spirit Dharma formulation again. Parameter Soul Bridge. This was the technique that Jun Xiaoyaro had obtained from the mother of the red spider lilies. Scarlet red spider lilies danced in the sky, and a bridge appeared from within. That bridge seemed to be able to lead all the spirits in the world to the end of the parameter. What technique is that? The child of truth was truly shocked. How could Jun Xiaoyaro have so many primordial spirit Dharma formulae? And they were all so fierce. The parameter soul bridge crushed down. In addition, Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit was at the peak of the boundless realm. Even someone as strong as the child of truth felt as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him, making it difficult for him to resist. His body was involuntarily pulled by the parameter soul bridge, and he wanted to walk to the other end of the bridge and reach the other side. It had to be said that the parameter clan's Dharma formulae were indeed terrifying. The child of truth's body was instantly torn apart. Of course, this was only a portion of his primordial spirit. It wouldn't cause too much of an impact on the child of truth's main body. However, the opportunity in the void sky realm might not be fated with him. No, impossible. The child of truth shouted. His originally broken body began to be enveloped by the light of endless faith. His primordial spirit wasn't an ordinary primordial spirit, but a rare faith primordial spirit. As long as the power of faith was endless, it could provide his primordial spirit with endless energy. The truth divine ring behind the child of truth's head bloomed with endless divine light. His broken primordial spirit body actually began to heal and repair. He wasn't willing to be excluded from the void sky realm just like that. He still wanted to obtain the opportunities inside. Jun Xiaoyao, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. As long as faith is endless, the primordial spirit will not be destroyed. This is the power of the faith primordial spirit. The child of truth regained his confidence. He was incomparably transcendent, and his entire body was bathed in the light of faith. Jun Xiaoyao didn't think much of it. Is that so? He tilted his head slightly. Since that was the case, he would just refine it completely. Jun Xiaoyao activated the law of devouring, the devouring god demonic technique, the devouring heaven creation divine technique, the devouring great divine ability, and other abilities. In the end, they fused into a black hole. That black hole was incomparably deep, as if it could refine everything in the universe. A violent suction force surged out, directly pulling the child of truth's primordial spirit into it. This is, the child of truth's originally confident expression changed again. Jun Xiaoyao's endless methods really made him speechless. The child of truth's entire body was burning with the light of faith. He used the supreme mantra, the truth divine fist, and other powerful moves, wanting to destroy the only black hole. However, the only black hole devoured everything. Even the moves that the child of truth used were swallowed by it, unable to cause a single splash. In the end, the child of truth's entire body was sucked into the only black hole. No matter how strange the faith primordial spirit was, it was impossible to recover. Because all of it was devoured. Jun Xiaoyao immediately felt as if a massive surge of soul power was being refined by him. At the same time, there was also a lot of faith power and essence that he comprehended. Jun Xiaoyao came to a realization right away. After refining part of the child of truth's faith primordial spirit, Jun Xiaoyao had a lot of insights. Maybe I can condense the law of faith. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were very bright. He had gathered the faith of all living beings, and he also had the god's Dharma body. Now, he had refined part of the child of truth's primordial spirit. This caused him to have an extremely deep understanding of the power of faith. Jun Xiaoyao could use this to condense the law of faith. This was simply a pleasant surprise for Jun Xiaoyao. Not bad. These newly born geniuses are indeed plump and delicious leeks. They have brought me so many benefits. Jun Xiaoyao smiled. While comprehending the essence of faith, he continued to go deeper. Outside the void sky world, on the broken star, many geniuses had already woken up. They all had helpless looks on their faces. They were destroyed not long after entering the void sky world. They didn't get any opportunities at all. At this moment, the child of truth, who was sitting cross-legged in the ancient formation, suddenly trembled and woke up. His face was as gloomy as water. The surrounding geniuses looked over, and they were all stunned. What? The child of truth actually woke up. So, he failed? Impossible. How could he fail so easily? The surrounding people found it inconceivable. The child of truth was not on the same level as Jun Xiaoyao, the ancient young emperor, the carnate chaotic body, and other geniuses. However, he was also one of the top geniuses, similar to Huang Nidao, Little Stone Emperor, and other geniuses. But now, he had failed so early. And it seemed that he didn't get any great opportunities. Even Third Elder Shu Mo was a little surprised. However, after thinking for a while, his old eyes narrowed slightly. Jun Xiaoyao, feeling the surprised gazes around him. The child of truth's expression remained calm, but his heart was filled with extreme coldness. He looked at Jun Xiaoyao, who was sitting cross-legged on the other side of the ancient formation. Not only did Jun Xiaoyao make it impossible for him to get any opportunities in the void sky world, he even devoured and refined part of his primordial spirit. This was absolutely unforgivable. If it weren't for the fact that Third Elder Shu Mo was here, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to hold back and directly attack Jun Xiaoyao's main body, so that he wouldn't be able to get any opportunities. Jun Xiaoyao, I'll remember this. The Gulan sect must get your god's Dharma body and faith. Chapter 1165. In the depths of the void sky realm, after Jun Xiaoyao dealt with the Son of Truth, he continued to move forward with his hands behind his back. To him, the Son of Truth was just a small character. He was just a little bit, but half a bucket of water jingled and couldn't make any waves. However, Jun Xiaoyao didn't plan to directly settle the score with the Son of Truth after he went out. He wanted the Son of Truth to grow like a leek. It was best to wait until his primordial spirit of faith completely sublimated and transformed. Then, he would directly refine it. It would definitely be a great tonic that could become the nourishment for Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit of 3 lives. It's not that I want to swing the sickle, but you guys insisted on hitting me. Although Jun Xiaoyao controlled the only black hole, he wouldn't go around refining other geniuses. That was the method of a demon. Jun Xiaoyao didn't mind becoming a demon, but he still needed the title of a hero to collect the faith of all living beings. He could only blame the Son of Truth for hitting the muzzle of his gun. Then, he could only start harvesting leeks. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao had an inexplicable feeling. His reincarnation law was trembling slightly. Could it be that a top-grade supreme treasure has appeared? It seems that the Great Elder didn't lie to me. Jun Xiaoyao raised his eyebrows slightly. The Great Elder of Immortal Academy had once told Jun Xiaoyao that there were some opportunities in the Void Sky realm that even the Jun family would find difficult to take out. And now, Jun Xiaoyao sensed that a supreme treasure of this level seemed to have appeared. Is it related to reincarnation? Jun Xiaoyao was curious. He also had a deep relationship with the power of reincarnation. The second ability of the Supreme Bone was the reincarnation Nirvana Light. The fist technique that had always accompanied him, the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, was also a reincarnation attribute supreme cultivation technique. The mother of the spider lilies also gave him the parameter reincarnation immortal art. Therefore, Jun Xiaoyao's research on the power of reincarnation was quite deep, and he even condensed the law of reincarnation. Most importantly, the power of reincarnation was of great help to Jun Xiaoyao's inner universe. If Jun Xiaoyao's inner universe began to construct reincarnation, only then could the entire inner universe have the foundation of all life and death. Interesting. Let me see what kind of treasure it is. Jun Xiaoyao followed his instincts and went deeper into the place with a hint of curiosity. It didn't take long for a thick fog to appear in front of Jun Xiaoyao, making his vision hazy. Soul-dispersing fog. Jun Xiaoyao saw through it at a glance. If a person with a weak essence soul stepped into the soul-dispersing fog, their essence soul would dissipate in 3 steps. Coincidentally, the spirit-dispersing fog blocked Jun Xiaoyao's path. Jun Xiaoyao pondered for a moment. Then, without dodging, he stepped into the spirit-dispersing fog. He was actually using his origin spirit to resist the corrosion of the soul-dispersing mist. If anyone saw this, they would definitely be shocked beyond words. This was too shocking. The soul-dispersing mist, which would have dissipated upon contact with ordinary primordial spirits, was used by Jun Xiaoyao as a means of tempering his primordial spirit. When I was young, my primordial spirit was tempered by the primal chaos divine grindstone visualization method countless times. This soul-dispersing fog is just SOSO. Although Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit body emitted sizzling sounds, he seemed to be used to it and didn't feel anything. However, Jun Xiaoyao could also feel that his primordial spirit seemed to be purified in this soul-dispersing fog, becoming more solid. Just as Jun Xiaoyao entered the soul-dispersing fog area, in another mysterious place in the void sky world, there were many large cracks in the dark void. The void sky world was a place of chaotic spacetime to begin with. Elder Shu Mo had also warned that there might be many spacetime cracks that might even lead to unknown worlds, so these Immortal Academy disciples shouldn't be so curious. This place was clearly a void passage in the void sky world that Immortal Academy didn't know about. At this moment, in the grotesque and variegated passage, suddenly, a few figures appeared. They were also in the primordial spirit state and didn't descend in their true bodies. Their bodies were covered in a layer of pale green light, appearing incomparably transcendent. It was as if they were separated from the world of mortals, their temperaments ethereal and otherworldly. Green was a noble color, because it was the color of the sky. It represented the heavens. At this moment, these figures were conversing. That divine item of heaven and earth should be about to mature, right? It should be. Otherwise, Heavenly Cycle Daozi wouldn't have asked us to come and pick it. The void sky world is indeed a place of history. The great battle back then, TSK, my clan's watchers still recorded it in the history books. It hasn't been spread out yet. Sure, don't talk about that kind of thing. Let's get down to business. Right, it seems that some disciples of the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy have also entered the void sky world. Don't be disturbed by them. It doesn't matter. They're just a bunch of ants. Don't worry about them. But there are a few that are stronger, such as the one from the ancient Orchid sect, the son of the undying ancient emperor, the genius of the Xian Ting, and the one from the Jun family. When the Jun family was mentioned, the mysterious figures paused for a moment. Jun Xiaoyao had done something that made them a little unhappy. He had toyed with the heavens. It's just a moment of glory. Haha, that's true. Our clan controls the epoch and stands above all living things. Noble green blood flows in our bodies. The Xian Ting, the underworld, the Jun family, and the imperial family are just the strongest above the surface. If it weren't for the fact that our clan doesn't want to float above the surface, how could they have the qualifications to call themselves kings? These mysterious figures, as they conversed, revealed an innate sense of superiority. Everything, including the human race, was as small and insignificant as ants in their words, not worthy of their attention. The Immortal Academy naturally didn't know the situation here. The void sky world was chaotic to begin with, and it was constantly changing. There were actually many passages like this. In the depths of the void sky world, in an area with a strange aura. In the void here, all kinds of brilliance surged, and there was also an indescribable vast reincarnation aura. As long as one wasn't a fool, they would know that there was definitely a great opportunity here. Many disciples of the Immortal Academy were attracted over. Of course, it wasn't that easy for them to go deeper. After all, they were not the only ones who were attracted over. In the void sky world, some ancient heroic spirits and the imprints of the strongest experts were attracted by their instincts, and gathered over crazily. What's going on? Why do these ancient heroic spirits feel like they have gone crazy? Many disciples of the Immortal Academy were confused. Reincarnation, it's the power of reincarnation. These ancient heroic spirits want to use the power of reincarnation to achieve reincarnation and transcend. A prodigy yelled. They were also attracted by the vast power of reincarnation. The scene was a little chaotic. The disciples of the Immortal Academy and the ancient heroic spirits and the imprints of the strongest experts fought fiercely. Those who were able to join the Immortal Academy were obviously the most outstanding talents of the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm. Every one of them was quite strong. Of course, there were also some extremely strong existences among the ancient heroic spirits. Both sides were injured in an instant. Damn it, are you bullying me because my primordial spirit isn't strong enough? Among the disciples of the Immortal Academy, a crisp and tender voice cursed with a hint of childishness. It was the little divine demonic ant, Little Yi. The divine demonic ant clan had overwhelming vitality, unparalleled physical strength, and unparalleled divine power. It was one of the few bloodlines that could compete with the sacred body of the ancients. However, there were always gains and losses. Not everyone could be like Jun Xiaoyao, whose physical body and primordial spirit had reached the peak. The divine demonic ant clan had relatively weak primordial spirits. Of course, that was only in comparison to their physical bodies. Their primordial spirits weren't that strong. Therefore, Little Yi had a hard time entering the void sky world. He couldn't use his physical body, which he was best at. He could only resist with the power of his primordial spirit. Hey, you loach, let's see how I'll subdue you. The little divine demonic ant saw an ancient heroic spirit. It was a powerful viper. The little divine demonic ant was full of fighting spirit. The divine demonic ant clan had once competed with the dragon clan for the title of the strongest. At that moment, a six-colored brilliance suddenly appeared in the deepest part of the area. The chanting of the great Tao sounded. A six-colored flower appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The six-colored flower was the size of a basin. Each petal seemed to be holding up a world. Heaven, man, Asura, hell, beast, evil spirit. 6 paths of reincarnation. Could that be the legendary 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route? Chapter 1166. It was a 6-colored flower the size of a basin. It didn't look big, but it seemed to contain 6 worlds. There was ethereal immortal energy swirling around it, and all kinds of strange scenes appeared. True dragons, killins, divine phoenixes, mountains, rivers, seas, suns, moons, stars, and all living beings. Nothing seemed to be able to escape the cycle of reincarnation between the 6 petals. Everyone was shocked to see that there were grain-like jade ribbons floating and spinning between the 6 petals. Upon closer inspection, it looked like countless spirits were reincarnating between the 6 petals. Was this really a reincarnation cycle? Many Immortal Academy disciples were shocked. Some prodigies even cried out. This was the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. It was a divine creation object of heaven and earth, a priceless treasure comparable to the world tree. In an instant, all the prodigies' eyes turned red. Those who could enter Immortal Academy were all disciples of ancient families and prodigies of undying clans. But even with such noble statuses, the factions and families behind them couldn't give them the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. This wasn't because of its ability, but because it was too rare. There might only be a few in the entire immortal realm, or even just one. Just like the world tree, it was something that couldn't be obtained no matter how powerful the faction was. It required great luck. Even if Jun Xiaoyao was here, he would definitely be tempted. Because in his inner universe, only the world tree's rarity could slightly surpass the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. Even the spring of life, the immortal source ancestral vein, the celestial tree, and other wondrous items were less rare than the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. The prodigies here were still wondering why those ancient spirits seemed to have gone crazy. But now, they were almost going crazy. This was a heavenly creation that even those with money, power, and status couldn't get. All the Immortal Academy disciples' eyes were as red as burning steel balls as they joined the fight. The little divine demon and also did its best to tear apart the alternative dragon spirit and rushed toward the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. Now, there was only one thought in everyone's mind. Seize the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. The fight here immediately reached a climax. At this critical moment, suddenly, black heavenly fire swept over from the distance. Many ancient heroic spirits were incinerated into nothingness by the black flames. It's him, Huang Nai Dao. When they saw the black undying flames, everyone knew who had come. Other than Huang Nidao, there was no one else. However, what left a few Immortal Academy disciples shocked and furious was that the undying flames attacked indiscriminately. Even though those ancient heroic spirits were wiped out, a few Immortal Academy disciples still released unresigned miserable cries. His primordial spirit was destroyed in the undying flame, and he lost the precious opportunity to fight for the opportunity. Huang Nidao, although you are the son of the ancient emperor, don't you think your actions are too overbearing? A genius from a clan of the ancients said coldly. The remote antiquity families and the Archean royalty had always been at odds with each other. Oh, really? Huang Nidao tilted his head slightly, and an ancient mark flickered between his eyebrows. He pointed out with his finger, and the undying flames engulfed the genius of the clan of the ancients, destroying him. This action made many of the Immortal Academy disciples here not dare act recklessly, their hearts cold. Who dared to move now? Taking the immortal route of the 6 paths of reincarnation was the same as making an enemy out of Huang Nidao. Most importantly, the destruction of one's primordial spirit meant that they had lost the chance to stay in the void sky world. So, no one dared to act recklessly. The treasures of heaven and earth belong to those who are capable. Do you still think this is a game? If you don't have the courage and ability, then accept your fate. The road to rise up is very cruel. A cold smile appeared on Huang Nidao's handsome face. He waved his sleeve, silencing many of the Immortal Academy disciples. They didn't dare to retort. This was Huang Nidao's boldness and majesty. And at this critical juncture, a crisp, tender, and childish voice rang out. You be ****, what are you showing off for? Do you really think you're the best in the world? Boss Jun can crush you with one palm. Huang Nidao's eyes turned cold as he looked at the source of the voice. It was the demonic ant, Little Yi. The eyes of the other Immortal Academy disciples lit up. Like Huang Nidao, Little Yi was also the legitimate son of an ancient emperor. There wasn't much of a difference in status between them. Demonic ant, I've already tolerated your unreasonable offense once when I was in Immortal Academy. Now, it seems that you don't know what's good for you. Huang Nidao's expression didn't change much. He looked as if he had a card up his sleeve. What right do you have to tell me what's good for me? The ant clenched its fists. Although it was only the size of a little finger, it was the only creature present who dared to confront Huang Nidao directly. Little Yi just couldn't stand it. It was only natural that someone like Jun Xiaoyao, who was invincible among his peers, would be so domineering. Huang Nidao, on the other hand, hadn't defeated anyone in the world yet, but he had already learned how to show off. He wouldn't have a good ending. The little divine demon ant's repeated provocations made Huang Nidao lose his patience. If I remember correctly, the demonic ant has an unparalleled physical body and can even compete with true dragons for supremacy. But its primordial spirit doesn't seem to be its strong suit. Huang Nidao's words made the ant's heart skip a beat. But it still said stubbornly, so what? Do you think I'm scared of you? Here, I'll let you have a taste of my immortal divine phoenix's immortal primordial spirit. Huang Nidao activated his soul power, which turned into monstrous immortal flames. The immortal primordial spirit of his race was very special. Like the characteristics of a phoenix, it could be reborn in flames and undergo nirvana. Therefore, it was extremely difficult to kill an immortal primordial spirit. This was also why his father, the immortal ancient emperor, could shake the entire immortal domain. Apart from being powerful, the immortal primordial spirit also made it very difficult to kill the immortal ancient emperor. One could imagine how terrifying an immortal ancient emperor that was difficult to kill would be. If he couldn't kill it, then what awaited him would be the revenge of an immortal ancient emperor. Huang Nidao activated the power of the immortal primordial spirit. The surging immortal flames turned into countless flaming sword feathers that shot toward the ant. Damn it! The ant's expression was a bit gloomy. It was in a very passive position. If we were outside, Grandpa would definitely beat you to death, you damn birdman. The little divine demon ant was unwilling to accept this. Unfortunately, this is the void sky world. Huang Nidao smiled coldly. Using one's weakness to attack the ant's strength, the ant was naturally at a disadvantage. Just as the ant's primordial spirit started to turn illusory, a clear dragon's roar sounded in the distance. A dragon-shaped primordial spirit appeared. Huang Nidao was surprised. He collided with the dragon-shaped primordial spirit and forced it back. The dragon-shaped primordial spirit turned into a beautiful woman in a palace dress. It was Princess Longji. This primordial spirit. You've indeed inherited the legacy of the nine-fingered sage dragon emperor. Huang Nidao's expression was still calm. Chapter 1167. True dragons and phoenixes had always been on par with each other. Back in the primordial age, they had both reigned supreme. Moreover, these two species were very influential. They weren't limited to just one branch or one faction. Seeing Princess Longji's help, the ant wiped the sweat off its forehead and said sincerely, "Big Sister Longji, thank you for your kindness." "Big Sister Loach, thank you. You are the best of all loaches." Princess Longji's chest heaved as she heard this. She couldn't help but roll her eyes. The divine demon ant had once competed with the dragons for physical strength, so the ant had always been prejudiced against the dragons. However, Princess Longji was Jun Xiaoyao's woman and she had helped it. Naturally, it had to express its gratitude. But this way of thanking her made Princess Longji speechless. Was it thanking her or mocking her? "I wouldn't have cared if you weren't my master's pet," said Princess Longji, pursing her lips. "What pet? Boss Jun and I are sworn brothers." The ant jumped up and retorted. On the other side, Huang Nidao darted a look at Princess Longji. Princess Longji was tall and slender. Her hair danced in the wind, her skin was as smooth as jade, and her legs swayed gracefully. If it were any other man, they would definitely worship such a peerless beauty as if she were a goddess. However, she was only fit to be Jun Xiaoyao's mount. Jun Xiaoyao was riding her. This was simply a reckless waste of resources. "You're also a creature of the Archean royalty and have a trace of the ancient emperor's blood in you. Don't you think it's beneath you to be a human's mount?" The look on Princess Longji's face didn't change. "My master will become the most powerful man in history. Even being his mount is a great honor." Princess Longji had been Jun Xiaoyao's rival in the beginning. Later, she was subdued by Jun Xiaoyao. Along the way, she had witnessed Jun Xiaoyao's rise with her own eyes. She was now completely loyal to Jun Xiaoyao. "I really don't know what that Jun Xiaoyao fed you. You've lost your mind. This little ancestor can give you a chance. Renounce the darkness and follow me. How about it?" Princess Longji was beautiful and had a trace of the ancient emperor's bloodline. She had even inherited the nine-fingered sage dragon emperor's legacy. It wouldn't be bad if he could take her in as his subordinate. Hearing this, Princess Longji's expression turned cold. "Are you worthy?" These three simple words expressed Princess Longji's disdain. Did he really think that she was such a loose woman? Only Jun Xiaoyao had the right to make her willingly submit to him. As for the others, Princess Longji couldn't be bothered to look at them. Huang Nidao's eyes turned cold. As a man, the greatest insult was to be looked down upon by a woman. "If that's the case, there's nothing I can do. I'll kill you all first before taking the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route." Huang Nidao attacked again, activating his immortal primordial spirit. The black undying flame was as vast as the ocean. Princess Longji's expression turned serious. Although she also had a trace of the ancient emperor's bloodline, she still had a trace of it. However, compared to Huang Nidao, who had the bloodline of the ancient emperor, there was still a huge gap. If she hadn't inherited the nine-fingered sage dragon emperor's legacy, she didn't have the right to fight against Huang Nidao at all. Boom! There was another clash. The little divine demon ant and Princess Longji fought against Huang Nidao. Even so, they were completely suppressed. Their primordial spirits were starting to become unstable. However, they were unwilling to lose their chance just like that. "Huang Nidao is too much." Some of the Immortal Academy disciples' expressions turned cold. Jun Xiaoyao was indeed domineering sometimes. However, he would only do that to the strong. For example, the young emperor of Xianting and the others. Jun Xiaoyao had been in Immortal Academy for so long, but they had never seen him put on airs before any of the Immortal Academy disciples. Meanwhile, Huang Nidao only wanted to feel his existence from these ordinary disciples. If it were the young emperor of Xianting or the other emperors, Huang Nidao definitely wouldn't be so arrogant. If Master was here, would you still be so arrogant? Princess Longji's expression was cold. That's right. This birdman only knows how to bully the weak, the little divine demon ant shouted. Huang Nidao's expression didn't change, as if he didn't hear it. Perhaps that was the truth. However, he had the strength to do so. Noisy. Huang Nidao's palm pressed down. The undying flames that covered the sky condensed into a giant flaming hand. It was as if the sky was burning. This palm was going to completely annihilate the little divine demon ant and Princess Longji. It was going to end their opportunity here. Just then, another palm came from afar. It collided with Huang Nidao's flaming hand, creating ripples. Who is it? Huang Nidao said coldly. He was a bit unhappy. In the distance, a man and a woman walked over. It was Jun Bieli and Li Qing-er. Jun Bieli was dressed in plain clothes. His appearance was ordinary. He was the type that couldn't be picked out in a crowd. However, he was a seed of the Jun family and had the title of Commoner Emperor. He had even defeated the young nine-fingered sage dragon emperor and cut off one of his fingers. Princess Longji's expression was complicated when she saw them. She used to hate Jun Xiaoyao. Not only did he attack Jun Xiaoyao, but he was also the nine-fingered sage dragon emperor's inner demon. However, now that the misunderstanding was resolved, Princess Longji's hatred for him wasn't that deep. Thank you, Princess Longji said after a moment of hesitation. Jun Bieli nodded slightly and turned to Huang Nidao. You're too naive if you want to monopolize the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. Jun Bieli's aura was calm and natural. His arrival shook the spirits of the Immortal Academy's disciples. Especially the disciples of the clan of the ancients. They breathed a sigh of relief. Although Jun Bieli wasn't as stunning as Jun Xiaoyao, he was still one of the Jun family's top geniuses. Huang Nidao's expression hardened. If it was just Jun Bieli, he could deal with him. However, the green-clothed woman beside Jun Bieli also gave him a faint sense of threat. This made Huang Nidao a bit incredulous. The news of Jun Bieli giving the heavenly Dao crown to Li Qing-er hadn't spread, so not many people knew about it. Then let's see who can get the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. Although Huang Nidao was vigilant, he obviously wouldn't show weakness. Just as everyone thought that Huang Nidao and Jun Bieli would fight. Suddenly, another voice sounded. The 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route has matured. As expected, it attracted a group of ants. No problem. Just pluck it. This voice made many of the Immortal Academy's disciples angry. Those who could enter the Immortal Academy were all dragons and phoenixes among men, but they were called ants by others. Even Jun Bieli and Huang Nidao, who were prepared for battle, frowned slightly and looked away. A few blurry green figures emerged from the void, carrying with them a sense of transcendence. You guys aren't Immortal Academy's disciples? Jun Bieli looked at those figures and frowned slightly. These people shouldn't be among the Immortal Academy's disciples who came to the Void Sky World this time. However, those figures couldn't help but chuckle when they heard this. Immortal Academy's disciples, haha. Does Immortal Academy have the right to make us disciples? Their words were full of disdain for the 9 Heavens Academy. Even Huang Nidao's eyes turned cold. Although he didn't care about Immortal Academy, he was still temporarily cultivating in Immortal Academy. Huang Nidao swung his sleeves and said coldly, "Who are you guys? How dare you talk nonsense in front of this little ancestor?" A figure walked out from those people and said in an incomparably cold voice, "All ants, back off. The 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route is not something you can touch." Chapter 1168. These people who had suddenly appeared were shrouded in a green brilliance, making them look mysterious and otherworldly. Many Immortal Academy disciples were confused. Only Immortal Academy disciples could enter the Void Sky World this time. Which corner did these people pop out from? Moreover, Their words were full of arrogance and loftiness. Although these people's actions and attitudes were a bit unpleasant, they had to admit that their primordial spirit auras were too vast, like the heavens. They weren't any weaker than Huang Nai Dao, Jun Bieli, and the others. You all also want the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. Huang Nai Dao's expression was cold. He already regarded the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route as his own. He wouldn't allow others to touch it. Boom. Without any superfluous words, Huang Nai Dao directly attacked. The surging undying flames turned into countless flaming sword feathers and swept out. However, those figures only laughed lightly. Their attitudes were very casual. When they attacked, vast and immeasurable soul power surged. It was as if the heavens were about to collapse. All kinds of mystical scenes appeared. The ancient gods worshipped, and all living creatures prayed. The scene was shocking. It was hard to imagine what kind of power these people came from. Boom. After the collision, those figures didn't move at all. Huang Nai Dao's eyes flashed with shock. Although he didn't use his full strength, this move was definitely not something an ordinary person could block. What, are you surprised? If I said that my strength is only average among my clan's younger generation, would you be even more shocked? Seeing Huang Nai Dao's shocked expression, the person who stood out said indifferently, "How is that possible?" The Immortal Academy disciples all sucked in a breath of cold air. These people's strength was only average in the power they came from. Didn't that mean that even Huang Nai Dao, an ancient emperor's direct descendant, could only be considered outstanding in that power and couldn't reach the top? This was terrifying. It was hard to imagine what kind of power would have this kind of power. What kind of power do you all come from? Huang Nai Dao frowned. He felt that the situation was a bit troublesome. It was out of his control. The leading figure said indifferently, "We are following the will of the heavens." When these words came out, Huang Nai Dao's pupils suddenly shrank. After all, he was the legitimate son of the emperor of the ancients. The 4 words, "receive the will of the heavens," and the heavenly Dao aura that these people gave off. He immediately thought of a race. One was hiding behind Ji Yuan, the most powerful beings beneath the surface of the immortal region. Grey Clan. Huang Nai Dao's eyes widened. I didn't expect this clan to come into being in this golden age. Are they going to step up from behind the scenes? Huang Nai Dao's heart was in turmoil. In this great world, all kinds of monsters came out. The forces that had been hidden under the surface in the past had also begun to reveal themselves. His father, the undying ancient emperor, had also warned him before. It was best not to provoke some of the ancient forces hidden under the surface of the water. The Grey Clan was one of them. This made Huang Nai Dao's expression freeze. He was in a dilemma. After all, he had declared that he was going to claim the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route for himself. But now, a creature from this race had appeared and wanted to obtain the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. It could be said that Huang Nai Dao had acted pretentiously too early. He was now in a difficult position. I know you. You are the legitimate son of the undying ancient emperor. For your father's sake, you should leave, said the leading figure. Huang Nai Dao's expression changed. Not to mention whether he could completely suppress these people. Even if he could defeat them, he couldn't do anything. The Grey Clan was too mysterious. If he really offended them, he wouldn't have a good ending. Even if he had a good father, it wouldn't be enough. Huang Nai Dao didn't say anything. He began to retreat, expressing his attitude. Clearly, the consequences of offending the Grey Clan were more serious than obtaining the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. TCH, isn't it a supreme treasure of heaven and earth? You're scared just like that. What a coward. Seeing Huang Nai Dao's attitude, the little divine devil ant naturally didn't want to let him go and mocked him. He's just a son of a father. That's right. Without a good father, how could he have his current status? Clearly, the other Immortal Academy disciples also looked down on Huang Nai Dao. You don't even know which clan they are from. Huang Nai Dao glanced at the little divine devil ant and the others coldly, then left with a flick of his sleeves. The remaining Immortal Academy disciples also began to move, preparing to leave. Jun Bieli frowned slightly. A dark glint flashed in his eyes. As expected, that race has surfaced. Jun Bieli had also guessed their identities. He also wanted to leave. There was no need to start a conflict with these people now. At that moment, the leader of the group said, "Hold on. Anyone related to Jun Xiaoyaro, stay." The hearts of the surrounding Immortal Academy disciples sank. Could it be that these mysterious people had a grudge against Jun Xiaoyaro as well? What do you mean by this? Princess Longji's eyes were cold. It's nothing. It's just that Jun Xiaoyaro did something wrong, so I'll let you guys pay for it first, the leader said. How dare you? Princess Longji's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Who had the right to judge Jun Xiaoyaro? Boss Jun is the hero who saved the immortal region. Are you blind? The little divine devil ant was also furious. Just who was this group of people? They actually dared to act so high and mighty and boast so shamelessly. Jun Xiaoyaro is only one of the reasons. We're also quite interested in that girl. She can be part of our clan. Someone else spoke, pointing at Li Qing'er, who was next to Jun Bieli. Li Qing'er's face changed. Jun Bieli's face also turned cold. He rarely showed such an expression. Li Qing'er was his reverse scale. You've gone too far, said Jun Bieli indifferently. The one who refined the heavenly Dao crown should be a member of our clan. If you don't want to, it's fine. Our clan has a special method to extract the power of the heavenly Dao crown from her body again. The leader's tone was cold and cruel. Boom. Jun Bieli attacked. He threw out a palm strike, returning to his original state. These people were really despicable. Ha, we came to the Void Sky Realm to pick the immortal root of 6 paths of reincarnation. How could we not be prepared? The few people sneered and activated their supreme soul power at the same time. In an instant, a heaven-like pressure surged out. A green array appeared. It was incomparably mighty, as if millions of miles of mountains and rivers were crushing down. Even someone as strong as Jun Bieli was forced to retreat while resisting this mighty array. His primordial spirit's body was trembling. After all, there was only the primordial spirit in the Void Sky Realm. Jun Bieli couldn't unleash his full strength. Li Qing'er, the divine devil ant, Princess Longji, and the others also attacked together to resist this array. It's futile. Where's Jun Xiaoyaro? Ask him to come and accept his punishment. How dare he blaspheme the heavens? These people's tone was extremely arrogant. It was as if the heavens were the boss and they were second. Other than the heavens, they didn't care about anything else in the world. Just as the situation was getting critical. Above the universe's firmament, a vast golden Buddha's Dharma form suddenly appeared. It crushed down like an ancient mountain and smashed onto the array. Who has the right to punish me? Even the heavens can't, let alone you. Chapter 1169. A cold and indifferent voice echoed in the area. The disciples of Immortal Academy who hadn't left yet were surprised and pleasantly surprised. The Son of God is here. Jun Xiaoyaro leisurely strolled down from the sky. He was tall and handsome, wearing a white robe. He had wanted to use the soul-dispersing mist to train himself earlier, so he had wasted some time and didn't get here right away. Boss Jun. Master. Xiaoyao. The little divine demon ant, Princess Longji, Jun Bieli, and the others were all excited. They felt inexplicably calm. It was as if Jun Xiaoyao's appearance could calm everything down. Unknowingly, Jun Xiaoyaro had become the stabilizing force in everyone's hearts. Great. Boss Jun is here. Let's see how arrogant they can be. The little divine demon ant clenched its fists in excitement. The massive image of Mahavairokkana clashed with the array. What a powerful soul power. Someone whispered. The leader looked at Jun Xiaoyao. He really came. But that's good. We can take care of some things. Jun Xiaoyao didn't pay attention to those people right away. Instead, he focused on the immortal root of 6 paths of reincarnation. The immortal root of 6 paths of reincarnation is indeed a rare divine item. The Grand Elder didn't lie to me. Jun Xiaoyaro was satisfied. However, he felt that there was something wrong with the immortal root of 6 paths of reincarnation. But no matter what, he had to get it first. Jun Xiaoyao saw it. It was his. This is what Zhu Tian Daozi of our clan wants. Do you dare to take it? Said the mysterious leader. Only then did Jun Xiaoyao look at them. He sized them up for a while and didn't seem surprised. Are you from the Grey Clan? Jun Xiaoyao pointed out the truth. Many disciples of Immortal Academy were confused. Clearly, they didn't know what was going on. However, there was a small portion of Immortal Academy's disciples whose eyes revealed contemplation. Then, as if he had thought of something, his pupils shook violently, and he took a deep breath. The Heaven Clan. Only in the oldest history books of my family, there are some vague records of it. Sky Clan. I once heard a senior of my clan that has lived for a few eras mention it. It's an absolutely mysterious and taboo clan. It's the Grey Clan. Those Sky Prides who knew a little about this were all extremely shocked. Even this race appeared in the world, starting to appear before the eyes of all creatures. The leader of the group frowned, finding out that Jun Xiaoyao was able to see through their identities right away. However, they didn't care. In any case, their race would gradually surface in this golden age. Seeing their reactions, Jun Xiaoyao had an idea. As for the heavenly cycle Daozi they spoke of, Jun Xiaoyao believed that he might be one of the so-called 8 sons of heaven. Previously, the Ascension King had also warned him to be careful of the Heaven Clan and the 8 sons of heaven. He was different from the abandoned pawns of the 7 emperors. The 8 sons of heaven were the true elites of the Heaven Clan. They were Daozi-level figures who were favored by the heavens. I'm Li Jiyu of the Heaven Clan. Since you know who we are, you should also know what a huge mistake you've made. Li Jiyu, who was the leader, scolded coldly. What mistake? Jun Xiaoyao smiled faintly. You went against the heavens. Li Jiyu scolded. Jun Xiaoyao smirked, but the smirk on his face was rather cold. How foolish and ridiculous. Even the heavens are no match for me, let alone the heavenly path's lackey. Jun Xiaoyao's words instantly made everyone go dead silent. It was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. The Heaven Clan was a supreme race that was hidden behind the scenes. They were favored by the heavenly path and had the same green blood as the heavens flowing in their bodies. This race was synonymous with nobility. In their eyes, all creatures were even more inferior than ants. However, Jun Xiaoyao had just called them lackeys. Not to mention the others, even Li Jiyu and the others were dumbfounded and thought that they had heard wrongly. However, before they could react, Jun Xiaoyao immediately activated his soul power. The majestic Vairocana Dharma form burst out with boundless light. Under the support of the boundless soul power, the Vairocana Dharma form directly crushed the array. How dare you? Li Jiyu reacted, and a terrifying cold light shot out from his eyes. This was a humiliation that they had never suffered before. The few of them also activated their power, and a vast aura like the heavenly path appeared. They were like a group of God's people who had descended to the mortal world. At the same time, the universe seemed to be shaking. Countless large stars seemed to be affected, and starlight poured down to support the primordial spirits of Li Jiyu and the others. This works. This is King cheating. The little divine demon ant shouted with his eyes wide open. They call themselves the people of the heavens and can even borrow the power of the heavens. The Heaven Clan is indeed not that simple. Jun Bieli saw through Li Jiyu and the others. They were actually borrowing the power of the heavens. On one hand, they could support themselves. On the other hand, they could use the power of the heavens to suppress their enemies. Of course, Li Jiyu and the others were not the top of the younger generation of the Heaven Clan. So, the power they could borrow was limited. Even so, it was terrifying enough. Huang Nidao and the others had to expend energy to resist. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were as calm as water. If the 8 children of the Heaven Clan appeared in front of him and attacked at the same time, Jun Xiaoyao's fighting spirit might have been aroused, which was rare for him. But Li Jiyu and the others were not worthy. Jun Xiaoyao simply used his fingers as a sword. Then, he pointed with his finger. A ray of sword light appeared. This ray of sword light was ordinary and not thick, and it did not have the aura that could cut the sun, moon, mountains, rivers, and everything in the universe. It even seemed a little ordinary. Li Jiyu and the others were slightly taken aback when they saw this, and then they laughed. That's it, that's it. After all, you once carried the title of invincible among the younger generation. Could it be that you're afraid of the Heaven Clan? The other members of the Heaven Clan couldn't help but laugh. Zhang Xiaoyao's words were not bad, and he even dared to treat them as his lackeys. But when he used this move, it was a bit of a drag. After Zhang Xiaoyao pointed with his finger, he turned around and didn't look at Li Jiyu and the others, nor did he refute. Instead, he walked toward the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. Zhang Xiaoyao, I told you that the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route is what Zhu Tian Daozi wants. Li Jiyu and the others frowned and used their methods to destroy the ray of sword light. However, Li Jiyu and the others suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. Their eyes turned to the ray of sword light again. The ray of sword light wasn't fast, and it even seemed a little slow. However, it seemed to reflect all living things in the world, all living things and all living things. What shocked them the most was that they saw themselves in that ray of sword light. What the hell is this? Li Jiyu and the others' hearts skipped a beat. They felt that something was wrong. They were the ones who should be mocked. Furthermore, what astonished them even more was that none of them were able to evade that strand of sword light. It was as if it was fated to cut them. Poochie. Without any resistance, Li Jiyu and the other members of the Heaven Clan silently destroyed their primordial spirits. This sword strike was aimed at the heart. It was even more harmful to the soul and primordial spirit. It was simply a killing move. The arrogant members of the Heaven Clan were annihilated into nothingness in the next moment. Everyone was speechless, and their eyes all turned to Zhang Xiaoyao, who had already walked to the side of the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. What kind of divine move is this? Many disciples of the Immortal Academy exclaimed. Zhang Xiaoyao's methods once again refreshed their understanding. Chapter 1170. Those people were from the Grey Clan. Even if they weren't the top Dao disciples of the Grey Clan, they were still on par with the top geniuses of the deity region. But now, they were annihilated by Zhang Xiaoyao's ordinary sword aura. Even if they were only nascent spirits in the void sky world, it was still shocking enough. Because Zhang Xiaoyao was also a nascent spirit. If it was his true body that executed this sword move, then how powerful would it be? No one could imagine it. This move was simply amazing. Master, Princess Longji's eyes were filled with admiration. Zhang Xiaoyao's performance was a stark contrast to Huang Nidao's from before. One was so casual that he didn't care about killing the Grey Clan members at all. The other was such a coward that he didn't dare to make a move even if he had some strength. Princess Longji wasn't even interested in looking at someone like that. Boss Jun is Boss Jun, forever a god. The divine demon Ant was also excited. It was right to follow Zhang Xiaoyao. Zhang Bieli was also impressed. Even he felt an extreme sense of danger from the sword just now. It seems that the gap between Xiaoyao and me is getting bigger and bigger. Zhang Bieli sighed, but he wasn't jealous at all. However, his face still darkened when he thought about Li Qing'er. It seemed that the Grey Clan also wanted the heavenly Dao crown. Isn't the Divine Sun's sword move a little too powerful? It felt like it described the ultimate law of the sword. Some of the geniuses who cultivated swordsmanship were mesmerized and couldn't wait to watch it again. The power of self-slash didn't disappoint Zhang Xiaoyao. After all, it was the combination of the 5 godly swordsmanship techniques. If it couldn't even kill Li Jiyu and the other small fries, that would be surprising. As for the consequences of provoking the Grey Clan, Zhang Xiaoyao didn't care at all. Didn't you hear what Zhun Tianming said? The Grey Clan was the followers of the heavenly Dao. The Zhun family, on the other hand, could overturn the sky if they were angry. So, who should be afraid of whom? The Grey Clan probably didn't know what was going on. Living in a sense of superiority. The only thing that Zhang Xiaoyao was interested in was the 8 sons of heaven. Zhang Xiaoyao stopped thinking about the grey race and focused on the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal route. The strange flower the size of a basin was incomparably resplendent, glistening with immortal light. The 6 petals of different colors seemed to hold up 6 worlds, forming the 6 paths of reincarnation. Just by getting close to it, one could feel the rich power of reincarnation. Zhang Xiaoyao pondered. He vaguely felt that there was something wrong with the 6-path reincarnation immortal root's aura. Although it looked good, it was still lacking compared to his tree of world. Strange, however, Zhang Xiaoyao didn't overthink it. He waved his sleeve and put away the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal root. Towards this, none of the other Immortal Academy disciples had any objections. If it was Huang Nidao, there would definitely be people who wouldn't be convinced. However, when it came to Zhang Xiaoyao, everyone felt that it was only natural. After putting away the 6-path reincarnation immortal root, Zhang Xiaoyao came to Princess Longji and the others. Master, Princess Longji bowed respectfully. Her beautiful eyes shone brightly. Boss Zhang is awesome. He killed the grey race so easily. The little divine demon ant was thrilled. Following such a big shot, it would never have to worry about not being able to live a good life in the future. Xiaoyao, it seems that you're already ahead of everyone. Zhang Bieli also smiled. Just a little trick. I'm glad that you're all fine. Zhang Xiaoyao smiled. By the way, about Qing-er. Zhang Bieli told him about how the grey race coveted Li Qing-er. It seems that the grey race wants the heavenly Dao crown as well, Zhang Xiaoyao said. But on second thought, it made sense. The heavenly Dao crown was a gift from the heavens. It was only natural that the grey race wanted it. Zhang Xiaoyao even suspected that the 8 children of heaven were also blessed by the heavenly Dao and had the heavenly Dao crown or something similar. You don't have to worry about me. How can I trouble my benefactor? Li Qing-er felt a little embarrassed. After all, she was only able to survive and become so young because of Zhang Xiaoyao. She was grateful to Zhang Xiaoyao from the bottom of her heart. Zhang Xiaoyao waved his hand. Don't mention it. The grey race won't provoke the Zhang family for the time being. Who knows if the grey race will have the last laugh in the future? Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes were cold. He hadn't provoked the grey race, but they had been acting all high and mighty, trying to punish him. All right. We'll take it one step at a time. Zhang Bieli nodded. The grey race was mysterious. But the Zhang family wasn't to be trifled with. Since ancient times, the Zhang family had never revealed its complete power. Many members of the Zhang family didn't even know how deep their power ran. Therefore, the Zhang family was a force above the surface. But it was well hidden, and it wasn't any worse than the forces below the surface. After talking for a while, Zhang Xiaoyao and the others also dispersed. Everyone's opportunities were different. If they gathered together, it would be difficult to find more opportunities. Zhang Xiaoyao continued to go deeper alone, and the other geniuses from the Immortal Academy also dispersed. At this moment, outside the void sky world, in another space, several figures were sitting cross-legged here. They were the original bodies of Li Jiyu and the others. On the side, there were a few members of the grey race taking care of them. Li Jiyu and the others' bodies shook, and then they spat out blood. The blood wasn't the bright red of ordinary creatures. Instead, it was a light green color. It wasn't rich, but it carried a supreme and ethereal aura. Li Jiyu, what happened to you? Didn't you get the 6 paths of reincarnation immortal root? Seeing the situation of Li Jiyu and the other members of the grey race who were taking care of them changed their expressions. Li Jiyu and the others hadn't been in the void sky world for long before they came out. Something must have happened. But they couldn't figure it out. Who dared to provoke the creatures of the grey race? Even if it was an immortal force, if they knew the name of the grey race, they would have to retreat respectfully. Zhang. Li Gu's mouth was mixed with blood as he spat out the words with difficulty. His eyes were bloodshot, and he felt his Dao heart collapsing inch by inch. This was extremely terrifying. It was reasonable to say that even if part of the origin spirit died in the void sky world, it wouldn't affect the original body too much. However, Li Jiyu and the others felt their vision turn dark, and their Dao hearts were cut off. Zhang what? The others' eyes narrowed. Zhang Xiaoyao. Li Jiyu roared. Then, the space between his eyebrows suddenly split open, and the primordial spirit within it shattered like a cracked porcelain. Not only him, but the glabella of the other members of the Grey race who entered the void sky world also cracked at the same time. Their Tao hearts were shattered, and their origin spirits were destroyed. This shocked the other members of the Grey race. How is this possible? Even if something bad happened in the void sky world, it shouldn't affect the original body outside. The members of the Grey race felt a chill in their throats. Jun Xiaoyaro is the son of God of the Jun family who fought against the heavens. How could he have such means? Should we go in? Do you want to die? Li Jiyu and the others are all dead. What's the point of us going in? Let's go back to the Grey race and tell Zhu Tiandaozi about this. Even if he's the son of God of the Jun family, he'll have to pay the price for being stained with the blood of the Grey race. The remaining members of the Grey race didn't go to the void sky world. Instead, they went back. As the most mysterious and proud race, their clansmen had been killed. One could imagine that it would cause a commotion. In particular, Zhu Tiandaozi would definitely not let it go. Leisurely literature, let the soul travel.